Chapter 736, Won't Forget Even in Death. Mo opened the box and was slightly surprised. Why are there 5 reverse shadow soul silk grasses? Ian said carefully and respectfully, the 2 extra are a gift. Rare Artifacts Hall hopes to receive Darren's protection. Protection? Mo immediately reacted and said after a moment of thought. You do not have to do this. Qian killed the Yao elder to help me. I will not stand by and ignore the consequences. Ian grimaced. There naturally will not be any problems while Darren is here. If Darren leaves, then Rare Artifact Hall will immediately face a calamity. Mo thought and found that Ian's analysis was correct. The Yao Council of Elders was a great power. If they wanted to do something from the shadows, then Rare Artifact Hall would be unable to stop them. He would also not stay for a long time at Buzhou City. You may say what you think, Mo asked. Ian said in a respectful voice that was filled with confidence. Darren must deal with many great matters, and does not have the time for minor matters. While Rare Artifact Hall is not one of the biggest businesses in the MO territories, we have a stable foundation. We can become Darren's hand in gathering distributing materials, transporting resources, and selling items. Mo was truly surprised now. He hadn't thought that Ian's plan was to fully submit to him. Deeply established family businesses like Rare Artifacts Hall were factions in their own right and would not easily submit to other factions. I will agree to this. Mo thought and then said, but you need to think it though. Once you pick a side, you will not be as idle and free as you are now. Ian's expression was joyful as he unhesitatingly bowed. This subordinate has thought this though, and this is not an impulse. Mo was very satisfied. Ian's Rare Artifacts Hall was an unexpected haul. No matter if it was Ian's great experience in managing a business, or Rare Artifacts Hall's enormous mercantile network, they were all things that the present Mo Cloud Sea desperately needed now. This was free food dropping down from the sky. Do not spread the news right now. Mo paused and thought. Ian immediately understood. Yes. Mo said, it is too dangerous outside. Stay here now, and prepare an auction for the Angel Device Raiment. Darren is planning to sell the Angel Device Raiment? Ian was stunned. Yes, sell it, it is just a pseudoshin device. Mo nodded and did not expand further. He said casually, just some simple preparations. Finishing, he disappeared. He left behind a shocked Ian. Only now did Ian realize why even the Yao Council of Elders had come to participate in this event. Pseudoshin device, the Angel Device Raiment, was a pseudoshin device. Ian had never seen a shin device and could not make a professional evaluation, but just the name was enough to make countless people crazy. Just a pseudoshin device. Darren was probably the only one that dared to say it like that. The shock on Ian's face turned into a grimace. Staring at the 5 reverse shadow soul silk grasses in the box. Mo couldn't help but become excited. For this he had almost traversed through the greater portion of 100 Savage Realm. In order to not be disturbed, Mo came to the underground sacrificial altar. A Gui and the black gold seal solder were both standing guard underground. The Yin energy was of benefit to a Gui, and the black gold seal soldier liked Yin energy. He copied the bone armor, swallowing Yin energy and then spitting it out. He played about happily. Staring at the reverse shadow soul silk grasses in the box, for some reason, Mo's heartbeat suddenly sped up. Strangely, he was slightly nervous. Those riddles that circled his mind, the voice that repeatedly appeared in his dreams, they would all be answered soon. His birth, his previous memories. Mo stared dazedly at the reverse shadow soul silk grass. He didn't move at all. A moment later, his body trembled. His dazed eyes finally recovered a thread of clarity. His practiced wooden face became alive and his eyes focused. He exhaled deeply and turned to look at a Gui who was stand guard silently. For some reason, the bewilderment and nervousness he felt immediately disappeared. He laughed mockingly at his own weakness. Determination and bravery returned to his eyes. He threw a reverse shadow soul silkgrass into his mouth. Something seemed to explode in his mind. Countless streaks of light and sound came at him from all directions. Boom! Zhuo-Mo's mind was completely bland and he was in a daze. There seemed to be countless people speaking at his ear. He couldn't make out what they were saying. Countless scenes flashed across his eyes but he could not see anything clearly. Too much information suddenly sprouted out of his memories and surrounded him. Even with such a strong consciousness, Zhuo-Mo could not tolerate so many scenes and voices. The blurry scenes and the noisy sounds seemed to drift far away. Zhuo-Mo's world became calm again. Hiding in a corner filled with rubble, a boy trembled. We definitely have to get it. On the other side of the damaged wall, the boy could hear the viciousness in the man's voice. Really? A woman's light laugh sounded. Kunlun is really Kunlun, this present, TSK, different from everyone else. However, before the old woman died, why didn't I hear Kunlun act so domineering? Humph. Go to the side, I feel irritated when I see your Xian Kong temple's falseness, the man said disdainfully. You really wound me, I want to ally with you. If that thing ends up in the hands of Tian Huan and Shi Xian. The woman pretended to be wounded and said. No need, the man said proudly, we, Kunlun, never need to ally with anyone. Don't waste effort, it cannot be used, the Jinji cannot be opened. Motherfucker, we spent so much energy to get this pile of scrap metal. They may have detected something. However, they would not bear for it to become scrap metal, they would definitely have something else up their sleeve. Did someone manage to escape? There seems to be one child that we have not found. Dumbass. How can such a mistake happen? He is trash. He doesn't like cultivating, and I heard that the old woman did not like him. Who is he to the old woman? The old woman's grandson. You idiot. Go find him. No matter what, find him. I want to see him alive or dead. In a dark and damp secret room, the small boy looked with intoxication at the mysterious patterns in front of him. For some reason he felt strangely close to these mysterious patterns. Especially those from the many jade scrolls, these would cause him to feel intimacy and warmth. Who let you in? A cold and shrill voice suddenly came from behind him. The young boy's hand shook and the jade scroll dropped to the ground. He turned around. An old woman with an icy expression was looking at him expressionlessly. I. The young boy's face was ashen white. Speak. The old woman shouted harshly. I solved the Jinji. Terror filled the young boy's mind and he stammered. The old woman was silent. You like these things very much. A moment later, the old woman suddenly spoke. Her expression was still cold but for some reason, she did not seem to be as intimidating as before. Yes. The young boy's terror decreased greatly as he bowed his head and spoke. The old woman's gaze was piercing and the young boy didn't dare to raise his head. These are the things that your father left you. I do not agree, but you have still found your way in. Starting from today, this place belongs to you. The old woman finished speaking expressionlessly and turned to leave. Starting today, she is your ghost. There was a young girl with a timid expression dressed in white robes standing next to the old woman. What is a ghost? The little boy asked fearfully. A person to protect you. The old woman was expressionlessly. A person to protect me? The young boy didn't seem to understand. Why does she have to protect me? Because I will die, the old woman said coldly. Gui, this name is not pleasing to hear, the young boy muttered. His hands didn't slow at all. The young girl tilted her head. Gui feels it is very good. How come you work so hard at such a boring thing like cultivating? The young boy was puzzled as he carefully treated the wounds on the young girl's feet. The young girl was teary due to the pain and her voice contained a sob. However, it was unusually determined. Because only when I become strong will I be able to protect young master. It is very safe here. There is no need to protect me. I don't like to go outside. The little boy's head shook like a rattle drum. What happens if that day comes? The young girl tilted her head. You are thinking too much. The little boy pretended to be an adult and tapped the young girl's head. Ah! The young girl covered her head. What is the old woman teaching you? Why are you wounded every time? The little boy said furiously, Is she beating you? Don't talk about grandma like that. The young girl pushed out her cheeks in anger. All right, I won't say anything. She doesn't like me anyways. The little boy was slightly dispirited. Grandma is very concerned about you, the little girl hurriedly comforted. No, I know, she doesn't like me, the little boy's voice was low, because she doesn't like my mother, I know. You are right. A cold voice came from behind him. The old woman was expressionless but hate flashed across her eyes. The tree branches whipped painfully against his face but the little boy gritted his teeth. Agui had carried him and ran for many days, so many that he had lost count. Agui's steps faltered. Bam! He fell off her back, hitting the ground. He became dizzy. A stream of blood spilled out the corner of Agui's mouth. She crawled next to him and said with a sob, young master, are you hurt? He tried to make his smile easy. No, I'm fine. Young master, I really am useless. Agui bit her lips, tears in her eyes. It's young master who is useless. He reached out and rubbed Agui's hair like usual. Gui, run. No. Agui shook her head stubbornly. He sighed. They used a secret spell and left behind a mark in my consciousness. No matter how we run, we will not be able to escape. No. Agui stilled and then screamed heartbreakingly, her tears spilling out. He smiled and rubbed Agui's head. Run, Gui, and live for me as well. Agui reached out her dirty hand and wiped away her tears. She suddenly picked him up and put him on his back and started to run frantically without a word. Gui, it is useless. Put me down. He urged many times on the road. After running for an unknown number of days, the last bit of Agui's energy ran out. The two of them fell to the ground. Agui's face was ashen. Her power had been used up. She struggled and crawled next to him. Agui's face was as white as paper. She touched his face and murmured, Young master, will you forget Agui? Of course not. He smiled weakly. He was also at the end of his energy. Young master, you definitely cannot forget Agui. Agui's face was suddenly covered in tears. The hot tears fell on his face. His consciousness started to fade as he murmured. Yes, even in death, I won't forget. Chapter 737, Entering the city. He didn't know how much time had passed. Maybe it was just a moment, or it had been a very long time. When Zuomo opened his eyes, something seemed to silently slide down his face. Many things had been shoved into his mind, so many that he needed time to organize them. But his blurry gaze only looked at the figure that stood silently as she guarding him. His blurry vision gradually cleared as though he returned from a dream to reality. Zuomo's emotions gradually steadied. He suddenly reached out and rubbed Agui's hair. Gazing at Agui's wooden face, Zuomo's gaze was warm but determined. A smile spread on his lips as he said lightly, Gui, now it is young master's turn to protect you. Zuomo stood up. His presence became even deeper. Most of the memory fragments that he had recovered were sad, cold, and filled with helplessness, yet the present Zuomo was far from that gentle and helpless little boy. He had been tempered in countless battles and tests of life and death. He was the man that built Mo Cloud Sea with his own power. The pain, sadness, and hopelessness in his memories caused him to mature even more. He would still feel terror, but he would not retreat. He would stand up straight and dare to advance even if with seas of flame or mountains of blade up ahead. He would still feel lost, but he would not lose himself to it. He would reach out his hands to explore, even if his hands would be torn bloody by the thorns in the mist. He would still be just as greedy, but he knew what was most precious and worthy of protection. He would never give up protecting, even if he needed to pay with his life. He started to understand his fate. There were still many questions. He needed to organize all of these memories. It probably would take a few more attempts to regain all of his memories. And he would have to find some of the parts he lost from Ague. Suemo remembered the old man said that it would be very beneficial for Ague to consume the reverse shadow soul silkgrass. That old man definitely had great connections with his family. However, this was not the time to take care of these matters. The riddle of his birth was unexpectedly enormous, so large that he needed time to dig. Ian was panicked. Suemo had told him to organize an auction and he had immediately started. He was familiar with doing this and the beginning had been smooth. In order to raise the status of the Angel Device Raiment, he spread the information that the Angel Device Raiment was a pseudo-Shin device. A weapon that was the closest to a Shin device. This immediately caused a great commotion in the MO territories. Under the unspoken agreement of the major factions, the news that the Angel Device Raiment was a pseudo-Shin weapon had not spread. Ian broke this, and people finally realized why those major personages that rarely showed themselves were so interested in this single matter. Shin device. This was such a distant and unfamiliar term. Even if many people were not unfamiliar with Shin power now, no one had mentioned Shin devices before. No one knew what a Shin device was like. Its era was so ancient that it was difficult to find any records of it. On the other hand, all of the Sky Missouri weapons were recorded in detail. While people would not see them, they would still know something about them. The Angel Device Raiment caused the already frenzied Buzhou city to boil over. All the factions and experts that had not intended to participate could not stop themselves. They knew even better than normal people the arrival of the Shin power era could not be stopped. At this time, the Angel Device Raiment was peerless in value. For those experts that were laboring to explore Shin power, the Angel Device Raiment could give them inspiration and act as an example. It would be of great help for them to comprehend Shin power. For those factions that already possessed Shin power, they hoped to reverse engineer the method to forge Shin devices through studying the Angel Device Raiment. Shin power was great in power, and not something that talismans or MO weapons could tolerate. Shin devices would be the future direction that forging would develop in. Ian was very satisfied with the effects of his arrangements. Watching as the entire MO territories became mad due to the Angel Device Raiment, he was filled with a sense of accomplishment. The most famed time of rare artifacts haul started from when they met Darren. Yet, as the popularity of the Angel Device Raiment increased, and Darren was still missing, Ian's sense of panic increased. Even the Yao elders had to control themselves because there were too many experts from many factions here. It had reached a terrifying level. The Yao elders cultivated Shin power, but a martial level MO was still a threat to them. If a martial had an earth MO weapon, and if they were careless, this threat was enough to be fatal. Almost half of all the experts in the MO territories had rushed here. No matter how prideful Ming Yuyi was, she would not think that they could match this enormous gathering of experts. It was the opposite. They needed to be on their guard constantly. If someone manipulated the situation from the shadows, and these MO experts attacked them, then they would be in a dangerous situation. Even the most arrogant elder restrained themselves when they saw the increasing number of marshals around them. Yet the gathering of so many experts by itself was filled with danger. One conflict, one spar could likely cause a large-scale melee fight. The situation would become something unable to be controlled. That result was something no one could tolerate. However, Darren had not shown himself. Ian could clearly feel that the experts that had traveled a long way to be here were rapidly losing their patience. The situation was worsening, and if Darren didn't come out. Thinking about the situation that could appear, his scalp prickled. When Ian saw Suemo, he immediately became overcome with excitement. Darren! Darren! Have you arranged the auction? Suemo thought of what he had arranged before he left. Ian nodded repeatedly and reported the recent situation in detail. He also spoke of his worries. Suemo smiled and praised, "You did good, I think we will be able to sell it for a high price." Ian grimaced. Darren was still able to smile at this time. Suemo thought and then said, "If this is the case, then let's wait a while more." Wait even more. Ian's expression became even more bitter. Suemo smiled, and didn't waste words. He took out a pile of materials from his ring and started to forge right in front of Ian. Ian perceptibly closed his mouth. The flames pulsed in Suemo's hand as though they were alive. The materials that were added to the flames continuously melted into metal liquid of various colors as they flowed. Suemo's gaze was calm. The blurry and fragmented shadows that flashed across his mind started to become clear. Other than Ague, what he remembered the most clearly were those jinji of different styles and types, and learning from his father's legacy. Time seemed to return to those days from many years ago. A square city the size of his palm formed in his hand. Ian's mouth was wide as he stared in shock at the city that took form in Suemo's hand. The little city was exquisite. The buildings were connected, and there were small copper bells on the towers that rose up, and it was possible to see each distinct brick on the city wall. This is as close I can get. Suemo sighed with a thread of regret in his eyes. He had created this based on his memories of the place he had lived in during his childhood. From the jade scrolls that his father had left him, he had learned that his father had built the city. He had not understood when he was small, but when he thought back now, he found to his shock that the jinji, seal scripts, and content of his father's jade scrolls were profound and hard to understand even now. His father's jade scroll had every jinji in the city labeled clearly. That was one of the pastimes of his childhood. He would follow his father's markings and find secret rooms that were hidden and not known by others. Then he would break the jinji and there would be many things that his father had left behind. Those were the toys of his childhood. But even if he had gotten back the memories related to those jinji, he was still unable to forge a city that was exactly the same as that in his memory. However, this was already enough to use. Suemo focused his mind, and threw the city lightly into the air. The bright seal scripts that had been floating in the sky above the grave ghost mounds suddenly rippled. Then they flew like moths to a flames towards the little green city in the air. The millions of bright lights flew simultaneously towards the palm-sized city. The scene was spectacular. The streaks of light were like rain, bright and glorious. The experts that had been standing outside the grave ghost mound were disturbed and numerous people flew into the air. The palm-sized green city was like a bottomless pit that sucked in the lights in the sky. In the span of a few dozen breaths, all of the multicolored lights within 50 li vanished. Only the little city was left floating in the sky. Multicolored mist floated like a nebula round it, beautiful and mysterious. The crowd shifted. Suddenly, the city expanded at an astounding rate. This change attracted everyone's attention. Each of them stared with wide eyes in fear of missing a single detail. When the city was more than 1 li in size, and was still growing, the restless crowd started to become silent. 5 li, 10 li. A green city that was 50 li in diameter appeared in front of the crowd. The crowd was silent. They had seen talismans before, and they had seen jinji before. A city that was 50 li was only the smallest of cities. But when it appeared in front of everyone in such a spectacular fashion, people couldn't help but be amazed. The green city was shrouded in a rainbow mist that glittered prettily. It slowly descended and landed on the ground of the grave ghost mound. Astounding yin energy was continuously absorbed by the city from the underground. Water started to appear in the rivers and lakes of the city. The water that was formed from yin energy flowed as it filled the river and lakes of the city. At the central hall of the city, Suemo pushed open the door. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar scene in front of him, countless scenes flashed through his mind. An emotion hard to describe rose. He instinctively reached out to rub Agui's hair. A feeling of hardness under his hand caused him to still and turn to look at Ague. The bone armor from the underground sacrificial altar had made its way onto Ague at some unknown time. The bone armor seemed to have been made specifically for Ague. It fit her tightly and showed off her perfect stature. The bone armor that was like a layer of gray crystal covered Ague well, and added hints of mystery. Zuemo smiled and rubbed Agui's helmet. The black gold seal soldier was hiding. He had sneaked out to fill his stomach, and he was now afraid that Zuemo was going to punish him. Tseng Lianer, Qinghua Shui, and Ian gaped at the scene in front of him. The deepness in Zuemo's eyes was put away. He recovered his usual smugness as his voice spread out. Everyone, welcome to the King's Forbidden City. Chapter 738, Auction. Every person that entered King's Forbidden City was filled with shock and amazement, especially since this city had appeared in such an implausible fashion in front of them. Many people's opinion of Zuemo's power increased. It was not news that Xiaomogu was strong, but for these experts that had their eyes on the top of their head, they were filled with confidence in themselves. Defeating a marshal might be a great matter in the eyes of the average person, but what was that to these people? They stood at the top of the MO territories. Martial level was just the basic requirement to be on their level. Some people had even started to reach Shin power. They were more wary of Zuemo's Jinji. The defeat of the Mo Shin temple proved the power of the Jinji. Otherwise, with Xiao Mo Ge's power, he definitely could not have faced the two Mo gods alone and even wounded the chief Mo god. King's Forbidden City presence was stronger than the dots of light they had seen before. There were many places that people could not understand. However, most of the people had come here to see the angel device raiment, and controlled their curiosity. The old man stood in front of the city. His face was upraised as he looked at the tall green city walls with a complex expression. Ian was the first to recover from his shock. The rare artifacts hall managers that had been waiting outside hurriedly entered the palace with dishes, dried fruit, and other things to set up the auction. The auction would be occurring in the central palace in King's Forbidden City. The managers of Rare Artifact Hall were quick in their movements and the location was soon prepared. The experts that entered the auction all had wary gazes. Even the most confident person would not dare to relax when there were so many experts in the surroundings. The Yao Council elders silently stayed in a corner. What do you see? Ming Yuyi asked in a small voice. A gray-robed elder beside her had an astounded gaze. He said in a low voice, "There are Mo matrices, seal scripts, and some others I do not understand. They seem to be ancient totem glyphs." Ancient totem glyphs? Feng Xinz on the other side of Ming Yuyi stilled when he heard this. Shin glyphs, the gray-robed elder explained. He lowered his voice, "I hear that Tianhuan has already created a complete Shin glyph, but they are on a different path, and not the original totem glyphs. Their totem glyphs here are not complete." "How is their power?" Ming Yuyi asked. The gray-robed elder grimaced. "Very strong, maybe even stronger than we imagine. See the water in the lakes? That is composed of Yin energy. If I am not wrong, there must be a Yin vein of extremely high grade under here. He really found a good place. It seems that we will have to bleed a bit." Ming Yuyi laughed lightly and her tone was not dispirited. The surrounding elders all had matter-of-fact expressions on Ming Yuyi's confidence. In this world, there were not many factions that were richer than the Yao Council of Elders. The Council of Elders had already passed a resolution on the angel device raiment, and their order to Ming Yuyi was to pay any price. When Zuemo appeared, all of the discussion immediately disappeared. Every person's gaze gathered on Zuemo. "Everyone, welcome. If there is anything lacking, please have forgiveness." Zuemo smiled slightly and greeted the people. He ignored the wariness on their faces. In his eyes, they were all customers. "Don't waste words, Yi is tight on time." Someone in the crowd muttered. Zuemo smiled and said with a nod, then, skipping pleasantries, "I will move directly to the main topic." His hand turned slightly, and then, suddenly, a rainbow-colored light carried a blue set of armor to slowly descend next to Zhuo angel device raiment. Sighs of shock immediately sounded inside the place. Many people couldn't help but stand up with excited expressions. In the corner, the gray-robed elder was excited and kept on exclaiming, "Too beautiful. It really is too beautiful. It is the work of a genius, so beautiful. Is it a pseudoshin device?" Ming Yuyi interrupted him to ask. She was deeply attracted to this beautiful raiment. Definitely. The gray-robed elder's response was certain. His gaze didn't bear to move away an inch as he murmured, "I smell the presence of Shin power." Ming Yuyi did not speak, but her gaze locked onto the angel device raiment was unusually hot. Zhuo could feel the passion, greed, and desire in the eyes of the people. This caused little Mo Gu to be excited because it meant that the angel device raiment did not lack for buyers. This was good for increasing the price. However, Zhuo decided to add more fire. "I believe that everyone has knowledge about the angel device raiment. I won't waste words and will demonstrate its use for everyone." There was a faint smile on Zhuo's face as though he was a polite gentleman. His hand was placed lightly on the angel device raiment. As he finished speaking, a blue light rapidly coiled around his hand and covered his entire body. When the light dissipated, Zhuo appeared in front of the crowd fully covered in the angel device raiment. The icy blue battle armor, the dark red mask. An icy killing energy suddenly filled the entire venue. Gasps immediately rang out in the crowd, many people unconsciously got on their guard. The icy blue scaled armor was covered in exquisite and complex patterns layered together beautifully. The pure white pair of wings on the back added some holiness to the presence. Suddenly, a layer of dense blue flame floated on the surface of the angel device raiment and burned silently. The flames quickly surrounded the wings on the back, and dots of blue energy started to fall. The moment the blue flames appeared, everyone's expressions changed slightly. An extremely dangerous presence was faintly detectable, but hard to capture. What shocked them even more was that Xiao Gu was standing in front of them, but they were unable to detect his presence. Rumble, many people unconsciously stood up and stared hard at Xiao Gu in front of them. They were unable to detect Xiao Gu. It was like there was no one where he was standing. Those that were in martial level were all people that had fought hundreds of times. They knew very well what it meant if one could completely hide their presence like this. Yet Xiao Gu gave them even more surprises. The snowy white wings lightly trembled. His body suddenly disappeared from his spot. So fast. Many people's pupils suddenly contracted. They were unable to capture Xiao Gu's figure. Such speed was astounding. Above. One person shouted, and everyone suddenly raised their heads. A blue figure stood in the sky above their heads. The two white wings were upraised, and formed a scissor shape. Zhuo's body curved at a strange angle like an eagle waiting to dive. The wings trembled, and Zhuo's figure disappeared again. Boom! When the blue figure once again appeared in people's vision, the blue flames that covered his body suddenly grew. He was like a meteor that was falling down. In a moment, the blurry figure that was shrouded in blue flames took over their vision. In that moment, their extremities felt cold, and they felt as though he was unstoppable. Shocked, some experts instinctively prepared to resist. The blue figure suddenly disappeared again. Clap clap clap. The light sound of clapping caused the people with their tense nervous to suddenly wake up. Good thing. Good thing. The old man clapped, his expression praising and intoxicated. Xiao Gu had returned to his original spot. Beside his hand, the icy blue angel device raiment had resumed its original state and gave off an indescribably beauty. Everyone immediately recognized the old man. This old man had shaken the world in his fight with Yoshi Yaku. This old man of unknown origins had become one of the main targets that all the major factions paid attention to. Zhuo felt irritated. This damned old man ruined the mood he had worked to create. The old man's origins was a mystery. No one was able to find him, even Zua Mo didn't see any sign of the old man in the memories he had gotten back. But from all the signs, the old man had a very close connection to his family. Refocusing, no one spoke, the venue was deathly silent. Zua Mo's gaze stabbed towards the old man as though he wanted to create countless holes in the damned old man. The old man met Zua Mo's gaze, grinning and showing his yellow and missing teeth. A moment later, there still wasn't a sound. Had his act been bad? Zua Mo muttered inside. He could only force himself to say, "Everyone, what do you feel?" No one spoke. Zua Mo was really stunned this time. Gu had worked so hard, shouldn't these people be showing hungry expressions? Why weren't they reacting at all? Deathly silence. Suddenly, someone muttered, "Name your price." "How many mabe?" "Give a number." "I'll take it." A large man stood up. "You'll take it?" "Your tone is really presumptuous." "Mabe? Is a Shin device like this something that can be bought with mabe?" Someone said sarcastically from the crowd. Another middle-aged person stood up. "I will use a jia to trade." "You can pick any jia under my command." "What the good is jia, resources are the most valuable," another said coolly. "I will give 10 ore veins, large ones, that produce 6th grade or above." "When does Grandmaster have the time to waste on mining?" A female spoke, "I will offer 1 10th grade material, and 10 9th grade materials." This caused the place to quiet. Even Zua Mo was shocked by this price. This price was definitely a high one. Each 9th grade material was a great price, and it was the first time Zua Mo heard someone offer a 2-digit number for 9th grade materials. Even after rare artifact hauls accumulation over thousands of years, they only had 3 9th grade materials, and not even 1 10th grade. Zua Mo had never seen a 10th grade material. 10 grade, that was the highest grade for materials. But Zua Mo reacted quickly. He recalled the old man's warning and hurriedly said, "I need things that will nurture souls. Treasures of this kind will be given priority, and don't offer anything average." The female hurriedly said, "These materials are enough for Grandmaster to trade for many treasures that can nurture the soul." Zua Mo shook his head, his expression determined. "I have living soul lure." A person stood up with an excited expression. Many people had expressions of envy. A lot of auctions were like this, only trading and not selling. This depended on luck. This person clearly had good luck. The living soul lure was a rare treasure that could nurture the soul. Zua Mo continued to shake his head, "Not high grade enough." Many people inhaled in sharply. Even the living soul lure wasn't high grade enough. Ming Yuyi showed a confidence expression. Ever since Xiao Mo Gu used Mo weapons to trade for reverse shadow soul silkgrass, she guessed that Xiao Mo Gu required treasures of this kind and had prepared a few. Her gamble was right. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded, "Shi Xian's 5-element soul Dan." Ming Yuyi's expression froze on her face. Chapter 739, Someone from the past. A large man with rough features stood up. He had a dry smile and his presence spread. "Gu Yang Dao." Gasps immediately ran out among the crowd. As one of the best battle generals of the present era, the reputation of Shi Xian's Tiger General Gu Yang Dao was known far and wide. Many people had wary expressions, but their enmity decreased. Gu Yang Dao had left Shi Xian and controlled a region. In the eyes of these people, he was just a small local power. Without the titan that was Shi Xian behind him, the resources that Gu Yang Dao could muster were limited. He was not as much a threat as he had been when he had been acting as the vanguard for Shi Xian. Zua Mo saw Gu Yang Dao and an expression of joyful surprise appeared on his face. "Brother Gu." Gu Yang Dao raised his folded hands in a smile and laughed brightly. "Brother, do not blame me for not notifying you I would be coming. It really is that we have come in a hurry, and I only recently discovered that it was you, brother." It was the first time the great majority of people here saw this past Shi Xian tiger. They instantly felt that he was as the rumors said. Gu Yang Dao's voice was like a bell, and his actions as fierce as that of a tiger. His presence naturally formed and caused people to unconsciously submit. Zuomo said apologetically, "If it isn't that this young brother needs treasures that can nurture the soul urgently, I should gift this to Brother Gu." Last time, Gu Yang Dao had and fought alongside Gongsun Cha to hold Great Peace City. Zuomo remembered this favor. Hearing the sincerity in Zuomo's voice, Gu Yang Dao laughed. "We are brothers, there's no need to be so courteous. Old Gu is satisfied that brother is willing to sell it to me. If brother gives this to me, old Gu doesn't dare to accept it." Finishing, he raised his hand, and a jade box flew towards Zuomo. Zuomo took the jade box. The jade box was of extremely high grade, and was thin and transparent as cicada wings. It was possible to clearly see a 5-colored lingdan within that was the size of a longan. The 5-colored light swirled. Zuomo didn't waste words. With a raise of his hand, the rainbow mist carried the angel device raiment to fly towards Gu Yang Dao. Gu Yang Dao's expression became joyed as he took it. At this time, a voice suddenly interrupted. "Wait!" Ming Yuyi stood out. "Can Mr. Gu let go of this item? This one is Ming Yuyi." Gu Yang Dao turned around and his expression was slightly affected. "So it is Elder Ming, this one has heard of you. However, sorry, this item is extremely important to old Gu." Ming Yuyi said coolly, "If Brother Gu is willing to part with them, the Yao is willing to ally with Brother Gu and fully support Brother Gu. With Brother Gu's abilities, and the abilities of the Yao, I believe that you will accomplish great things." The expressions of some people present immediately changed, especially the factions that were close to Gu Yang Dao's territory. If the Yao really did ally with Gu Yang Dao, they would be the first to suffer. Gu Yang Dao only smiled upon hearing this. His weathered face carried a thread of pride and disdain. "Many thanks, Miss Ming, for your good intentions. Old Gu is a rough person, but knows that while one is poor, they must not lack ambitions. I, Gu Yang Dao, will take for myself what I want. I will not sell myself to become a slave." "You dare!" An elder was furious upon hearing this. He leapt out and shouted as he pointed at Gu Yang Dao. A sharp ripple shot out his finger. Zuomo's expression suddenly changed. He hadn't thought that the people from the Yao Council of Elders dared to commit a sneak attack under the eyes of so many people. Gu Yang Dao was a battle general and not skilled for his individual power. He would not be able to dodge such a sudden attack from a Shin power expert. Damn it! There wasn't enough time. Zuomo was extremely frustrated, and his killing intent rose. The entire King's Forbidden City suddenly shook. If one was outside the palace, they would be able to see the rainbow clouds that hung over the city suddenly move. The water formed from Yin energy in the lakes suddenly boiled. In this moment, Zuomo decided that if something happened to Gu Yang Dao, he would have all of these Yao accompany his burial. In a flash, a person standing beside Gu Yang Dao silently appeared in front of Gu Yang Dao. The person's right hand was slightly open, 5 different kinds of light suddenly lighting up on his hands. Gold, wood, water, fire, and earth, the light seemed to ripple like water. The Yao Council elder suddenly changed expression. Before he was able to react, the sharp needle-like ripple he had just released suddenly turned and appeared a hand-width from his face. Pew! He spat out blood and fell forward. His expression was as white as paper, and his breathing weak. All of the Yao Council elders changed expression. Another elder hurriedly took out a pill and shoved it into the injured elder's mouth. "Sir is?" Ming Yu's pupils shrank slightly. Everyone finally saw the person who had acted. This was a delicate and quiet youth. He had an average expression and his present wasn't special in any way. From the start, he had silently stayed by Gu Yang Dao's side, including Zuomo. Everyone had missed his existence. "I am Shuangyu." Everyone was puzzled at this unfamiliar name. It was clearly the first time they heard this name. Ming Yuyi had a thoughtful expression. Moments later, her pupils contracted again. Shuang Yu, who 8 years ago went into seclusion in the five-element universe. Oh, you even know that? Shuang Yu stilled. Many people in Shixian didn't know his name, yet the other was able to point him out immediately. Ming Yuyi was intimidated. If her memory wasn't so good, she definitely would not have remembered. Out of the talented disciples in Shixian, Shuang Yu was not outstanding, considered to be somewhere in the upper quartile. His birth was ordinary, and the sect did not pay great attention to him. The only thing that Ming Yuyi remembered about him was because he had chosen to seclude himself in the five-element universe. The five-element universe was a place that almost everyone in Shixian had forgotten. It was a marvelous place that the Shixian founding ancestor had found. It was a location where an extremely small jia was beginning to form, the five elements slowly manifesting inside. The Shixian founding ancestor used great powers to seal it, and left only an entrance behind. He also said that only those that came out of the five-element universe would be the ones that had truly comprehended the true meaning of the five elements. It seemed to be a great place to gain experience. When Shixian had first been founded, many disciples chose to enter there to cultivate. Yet the reality was much crueler than they had imagined. If they could not comprehend the true meaning of the five elements, they could not come out. In history, there wasn't more than 5 disciples that had managed to come out. As Shixian gradually turned to enjoyment and luxury, the disciples forgot about the five-element universe. Shuang Yu was the only disciple that entered the five-element universe in the last 30 years, and it was only due to this that Ming Yuyi had some impression of the name. She hadn't thought that Shuang Yu had managed to come out of the five-element universe. And he had also thrown his lot in with Guliang Dao. Sharp inhales sounded in the crowd, many people had shocked expressions. They had never heard the name Shuang Yu before, but all of them knew of Shixian's five-element universe. Including Shuang Yu, there had been 5 disciples that had come out of the five-element universe. The previous 4 had all been the strongest of their era. Those that came out of the five-element universe were qualified to stand at the peak of their era. No one dared to dismiss him any longer, even if this youth appeared normal. Their gazes towards Guliang Dao became filled with wariness as well. No matter what, the upper level of Shixian would not be so stupid to push away a disciple that had survived the five-element universe. But Shuang Yu had still chosen to support Guliang Dao. Guliang Dao himself was a fierce tiger, and this was giving him a pair of wings. Sui Mo was slightly surprised. However, after he asked Pu Yao about the origins of the five-element universe, he was filled with admiration towards Shuang Yu and felt happy on Guliang Dao's behalf. Guliang Dao was a top battle general. Adding on a top expert like Shuang Yu, his power could be said to have completely transformed. Guliang Dao ignored the wary and hostile gazes of the other people. He patted Shuang Ye's shoulder and shoved the angel device raiment into Shuang Ye's hands. His movements were natural as he was doing something normal. Everyone finally realized. So the angel device raiment was for Shuang Yu. Shuang Yu stilled. Big brother. I originally planned to give it to you, but I am poor, and only had 1 lingdan that was acceptable. I was afraid that you would be disappointed if we didn't get it, so I didn't tell you beforehand. Guliang Dao explained unconcernedly. Shuang Yu felt his nose turn sour. He knew how poor Guliang Dao was. That, 5-element soul Dan, was the only top-level treasure Guliang Dao had. Everyone was solemn and their gazes when they looked at Guliang Dao were filled with respect. Anyone that could do this was worth of respect. People finally understood that Guliang Dao's accomplishment had not been due to luck. Big brother. Shuang Ye's eyes turned red. Guliang Dao frowned and scolded impatiently, after so many years, why are still you such a nag? Shuang Yu had a sheepish expression as he caressed the angel device raiment in his hand. His expression was like that of a child that had received the toy of his dreams. Ming Yuyi saw this and was even more intimidated inside. She felt deeply wary at Guliang Dao's actions, no matter if it really was sincere or an act. If this person was not a hero, he was an ambitious person. Just now, she had felt a thread of Shin power from Shuang Ye's attack, even if it had not fully taken form. With the angel device raiment in Shuang Ye's possession, Shuang Ye's power would probably advance and become completed. It was safest to kill people like Gu Yang Dao who could grow to become an enemy of the Yao Council of Elders. Ming Yuyi felt murderous. Shuang Yu was strong, but if they did not care about the price, they would be able to kill him on the way. If he perfected his Shin power, he would become a great threat. In Ming Yuyi's mind, only Kunlun, Tianhuan, and the Mo Shin Temple could become enemies of the Yao Council of Elders. The declining and rotting Shi Xian was of benefit to the elders. Yet Gu Yang Dao was the person most likely to inherit Shi Xian's wealth. If he inherited Shi Xian's wealth, then his strength would grow to a terrifying level. She had to eliminate a hidden and dangerous enemy like this. Her expression did not change as though nothing had happened. The wounded elder was helped up. His face was pale white as he glared poisonously at Shuang Yu. Yet Ming Yuyi forgot that there was still a person here, and this person was the true master of this place. Little girl, you wound my guests in front of Ji. Did you forget whose territory this is? Zhuo Mo's low-class tone was murderous and glacial. The temperature in the palace suddenly dropped. Chapter 740, Rage. Ming Yuyi was of high status, and had entered the Genius Alliance from a young age. Then she had become the youngest elder, and now she was the most likely candidate to become the next head of the Yao Council of Elders. No matter at what time in her life, she had numerous protectors. She was like the bright moon in the sky. When she appeared, her radiance would cause everyone else around her to lose color. When had she ever been called little girl? When Ming Yuyi heard the words, she stilled. Even the other people around her didn't immediately react. The first one to react was Feng Xinz. Feng Xinz was infuriated. In his mind, Miss Ming Yuyi was the goddess of his heart with an unrivaled position. Xiao Mo Gu dared to call her little girl. This was clearly blaspheming and insulting Miss Ming Yuyi. He could not endure this. Even if he had some positive feelings about Xiao Mo Gu previously, all of the good feelings dissipated in this moment. What replaced it was deep hate and dislike. He looked at Xiao Mo Gu unflinchingly and said coldly, Mr. Xiao, do not speak rashly and cause a calamity to come to you. A calamity? Zhuo Mo grinned and showed 2 rows of snowy white teeth. Before he finished speaking, a rainbow-colored cloud suddenly came out of the ground and wrapped around Feng Xinz's legs. Everyone's understand of Feng Xinz was limited to him completing a prison-breaking battle. Even among the Yao Council of Elders, there was only a rare few that knew that Feng Xinz had been one of the major players in solving Shin power. There was also no one that knew that Feng Xinz was the second member of this core group that was not a Sky Yao. However, he was of a deep mind, and did not show off, so no one had discovered it. Feng Xinz huffed. Pop pop pop, snowy white flowers suddenly bloomed around him. The fragile flowers contained astounding power, pushing away the rainbow mist cloud that had wrapped around his feet. He was just about to take the opportunity to retreat when the rainbow clouds suddenly appeared around him. He felt his body tighten and a strange field surrounded him. Feng Xinz's eyes suddenly lit up. With a clear shout, the snowy white hyacinth suddenly exploded. Countless snowy white flower petals shrouded his figure. These hyacinth flower petals composed of Shin power froze in the air as though a paralyzing spell had been cast. In the midst of it all, Feng Xinz felt the pressure on him decrease. These hyacinth petals seemed to form an enormous net. This was a field of power that belonged to Feng Xinz. Because he was being suppressed by the rainbow mist, the area covered by Feng Xinz's field of power was compressed to its limits, but this also made it as strong as possible. The strange rainbow mist was blocked off by these tender snow-white petals. Zhuo Mo had not expected Feng Xinz's strength, but he did not care. In the king's forbidden city, in this city, he was the true king. They did not understand this, but Zhuo Mo decided to make them understand. Just how great the difference between them was in this city. The palace disappeared like mist. In a flash, everyone seemed to be situation on a vast wildness. The endless rainbow-colored mist caused fear. Feng Xinzi's expression changed slightly. The pressure from the rainbow mists multiplied. The outermost layer of white flowers could not tolerate such great power. Pop pop pop, they exploded into pieces. The elders around Ming Yuyi saw this and their expressions changed slightly. As they began to move forward, a cold smile appeared at the corner of Zhuo Mo's mouth, his left hand moving slightly. The rainbow mists around the Yao elders suddenly grew. The mists that were like specks of dust became seal scripts and mo matrices of various sizes that covered the space around them. In front of the tsunami of power, the Yao elders all changed expression and frantically reacted. Looking at the panicked elders, Zhuo Mo's expression was vicious, tendons bulging as he swore, "You little people, just you bunch of failures dare to throw a tantrum on guest territory? You don't want to live? So what if I called her little girl? Let me tell you, in front of GE, all of you are little girls." Aha. You disagree? You bunch of little girls. Aha, a calamity. Have a taste of a true calamity. The experts that were watching the battle gaped at what they heard. Even a hero such as Gu Liangdao that did not care for courtesy had a gaping mouth as he looked, in shock, at the raging Zhuo Mo. Shuangyu, like an innocent boy, was so scared by Zhuo Mo acting like a street hoodlum that his body was froze in fear. At some time, water drops containing yin energy rose from the lakes and floated in the air. Zhuo Mo's grin showed 2 rows of white teeth that appeared like 2 rows of fangs. The water drops made from pure yin energy might only be something that other mo used in medicine pools or to forge mo weapons, but for Zhuo Mo, it was a terrifying killing weapon. Yin fire beads. The killing move that Zhuo Mo had first used when he stepped into the wider world. While it had been some time since he used it, but he had memorized the entire yin fire bead chapter. Additionally, the fire seed he had now was the Ascension fire. His arms spread out, Zhuo Mo made a grabbing motion, and dozens of pure yin beads flew towards him. Golden fire suddenly came out of his hand, erupting and wrapping around the pure yin fire beads that came. When the flames dissipated, dozens of round balls with golden patterns appeared in Zhuo Mo's hand. These round balls could not be called yin fire beads, but were yin fire shin beads. Zhuo Mo snickered coldly and threw the yin fire shin beads at Feng Xinz. The moment the yin fire shin beads met with Feng Xinz's white flower petals, a golden light flashed and suddenly exploded. The unparalleled and domineering power of the sun shin power spread, carrying golden flames. Once the white flower petals were touched by the golden shin fire, they would be cleanly burned away. Feng Xinz seemed to be struck by lightning and his body shook. The dozens of yin fire shin beads immediately exploded in the area. With the explosion of each one, Feng Xinz's body shook. Moments later, his complexion was pale white, and flower petals around him were scattered and had almost all vanished. Under the domineering and ferocious attack of the yin fire shin beads, Feng Xinz was significantly injured. Even the chief mo god had been defeated by the king's forbidden firmament, much less the weaker Feng Xinz. Everyone else was shocked. The power of the golden yin fire shin beads surpassed their imagination. The mo prided themselves in their physical abilities, yet what Zhuo Mo used was definitely not mo move. But it really was powerful. The explosion of each yin fire shin bead was like thunder and lightning. People's hearts trembled. Many people thought what if it was them that was being bombed. After thinking for a while, they found that there was no other solution than dodging. If they tried to fight back, there was no survival. Their expressions became ugly. Zhuo Mo also jumped in fright at the power of the yin fire shin beads, but he quickly hid his reaction. The yin energy here was extremely thick and pure, and the yin fire shin beads he forged would be even stronger. Having thought it through, Zhuo Mo was even more excited. He knew that such a fortuitous event such as this was a matter of luck. He could take the king's forbidden city with him, but not this yin vein. Suemo immediately decided that he had to enjoy himself to the fullest. His hands beckoned. Whoosh, another 100 pure Yin beads appeared. The Yin fire Shin beads were powerful, but they did have weaknesses. If this was a normal battle, which user of Shin power was not as fast as lightning? Before the Yin fire Shin bead could come into contact, the opponent would have disappeared. But in the king's forbidden city, this was the best killing move. The rainbow mist made from seal scripts and mo matrices were like a bog. They trapped Feng Xinz inside and he was unable to escape. From that, the Yin fire Shin beads could be used to maximum effect. To use their physical body to stand up to the Yin fire Shin beads was not something even the mo famed for their powerful bodies could do, much less Feng Xinz, a Yao. You're shameless. Feng Xinz howled angrily, the tendons in his face showing. He also saw through Zuomo's move, but the mist in the surroundings were like strong chains that wrapped around him to stop him from moving. Ha, you are right. Zuomo was smug and did not disguise the savagery on his face. He said hatefully, if I am not more shameless than you, how can Ji sort you out? As he spoke, he forged Yin fire Shin beads. In the blink of an eye, a few dozen Yin fire Shin beads took form. Feng Xinz's face turned ashen. He had received some serious internal injuries from the last attack. More importantly, his hyacinth flower net had already been destroyed. Xiao Mo Gu. Do you really want to become enemies against the Yao Council of Elders? Ming Yuyi could not attend to anything else and shouted harshly. Zuo was infuriated. Gu will spit on you. Little girl, from the start, it was you making trouble for GE, aha, now that you see you aren't a match for GE, you say that GE will become enemies with your Council of Elders. Ming Yuyi was stuck for words. Zuo said dismissively. Gu is attacking your Council of Elders, so what? You don't agree? If you don't agree, bit me. Come on. At the side, Shuang Yu was dumbstruck. He weakly poked Gu Yangdao, big brother, this is the Xiao Mo Gu you said was peerless in heroism. Gu Yangdao could not keep his expression. He coughed and weakly defended, even a rabbit will bite when cornered, also, one has to be ruthless like the autumn wind to the tree's leaves when facing the enemy, heroism, oh, let us not discuss this now. Shuang Yu swallowed and clearly had received a bit of a fright. He was of common birth but had never worried about clothing or food. From a young age, he had entered Shixian and worked hard on his cultivation without pay attention to matters of the world. The education he received taught him to first offer diplomacy before war, maintain rationality, and to not lose his poise. When had he ever seen someone like Zuo that was so unreasonable and didn't care about poise at all? But this guy was astounding powerful. Zuomo's words angered the Yao elders to howl. Xiao Mo Gu, you go too far. I will kill you. Xiao Mo Gu, you are dead, you will not be able to escape no matter where you go. Curse, keep on cursing. Zuomo's teeth were like 2 rows of knives. He snarled, you guys, you think you will be able to escape? Gu wanted to sort you out a long time ago. Without another words, the 100 Yin fire Shin beads on his hands were thrown in a ferocious barrage at the Yao elders. Chapter 741 Fire Battle. The hundreds of Yin fire Shin beads came like a rainstorm, with a rumble, turning into a black cloud that flew at the elders. The Yao elders trapped in the rainbow mists were immediately alarmed, but they could not break free of the cloud mist. All kinds of complex powers formed a field that was hard to break free of. No matter how hard they fought, they could not break away from this terrifying invisible net. Yet the Yin fire Shin beads that flew through the air were not affected by the strange restrictive power at all. The Yin fire Shin beads grew closer, and all the Yao elders felt their hairs stand on end. Just now, they had clearly seen the power of the Yin fire Shin beads. There was an immediate panic as all kinds of defensive Yao arts were released. Light shields, banana leaves, wheels of flowers. All kinds of colors and lights that layered together to completely surround them. The golden Yin fire Shin bead hit the defensive Yao arts. Boom boom boom. As hundreds of Yin fire shin beads exploded simultaneously, golden flames shot out and covered the figures of the Yao elders. The Yao eldest felt their vision turn bright, their ears ringing. A tsunami of power crashed into their defensive Yao art. Many people seemed to be hit by something large, their bodies shaking, and their faces slightly pale. The Council of Elders had only recently solved Shin power, and they had only created a few Shin techniques, and defensive Shin techniques made up a rather small portion of this. What the Yao elders used in their panic were mostly defensive Yao arts. Defensive Yao arts that encountered the Yin fire Shin beads forged in Sun Shin fire immediately wavered. Zhuo Mo did not care about that. The supply of Yin beads was endless here. He could use the Jinji here as easily as he could think. Here, he had the advantage of home territory. Even he did not understand that these people who clearly knew that they were within his Jinji still dared to challenge him. How idiotic were they? You dare to be so arrogant on guest territory? You don't want to live. Let me tell you, on guest territory, if you are a dragon, coil up, if you are a tiger, stay on the ground. Zhuo Mo's furious and aggressive shouts echoed in the king's forbidden city. Everyone else watching perceptively closed their mouths. They had heard of Xiao Mo Guest's reputation before, but they hadn't ever thought the rumored hero was really just a gangster. Anyone present would not easily dare offend the Yao Council of Elders, much less fight them. That was the Yao Council of Elders. They ruled all of the Yao, they had numerous battalions under their command. Countless prestigious families worked for them. All of the manpower and resources of the Yao were in their hands. This was a terrifying titan. But, seeing their faces become covered in ash from the Yin fire Shin beads, and unable to keep their faces up, everyone felt as though this was an illusion. They could not imagine just how rash a person needed to be to act this way. None of them would choose to do such a thing. They would even feel that Xiao Mo Gu was an idiot. However, they all admired Xiao Mo Gu's bravery. Those experts that had been restless were now silent. They were all intelligent people, and knew that they could not easily provoke a rash person like Xiao Mo Gu. He was someone that would beat and kill Yao elders, and he didn't have any qualms. The Yao elders were furious when they heard this, but when they looked at the hundreds of Yin fire Shin beads behind a snarling Zhuo Mo's body, their faces turned green. Die! Idiots! Zhuo Mo's hands moved, and a new batch of Yin fire Shin beads headed for the Yao elders like a fatal black cloud. A hint of irrepressible anger flashed through Ming Yu's eyes. She suddenly bowed towards a green-robed elder beside her and said respectfully, "Elder Yi, please." The green-robed elder was thin and tall, his expression was indifferent. He seemed to not see Ming Yu's respectful bow and just responded with a light, "Oh." He was extremely eye-catching among the disheveled Yao elders. There wasn't any speck of dust on him, and his expression seemed to be unaffected by everything that was happening around him. He slowly walked towards the front of the group. The rainbow mists did not seem to affect him at all. Deep respect and awe flashed across the eyes of the other Yao elders. They perceptively made a path, and each of them seemed relieved of a burden. Zhuo Mo had noticed this person with the cool expression a long time ago. Usually, a person with this kind of expression was usually a true expert. Expert? A hint of excitement flashed through Zhuo Mo's eyes, and his fighting spirit rose. Elder Yi looked indifferently at the Yin fire Shin beads that flew towards him. He raised his right hand and grabbed at the Yin fire Shin beads in the air. A scene that was almost difficult to imagine occurred. The Yin fire Shin beads seemed to lose control and flew towards him like birds returning to the nest. When they flew to within arm's length of him, they stopped in the air. Gasps rang out among the crowd. No one understood this move. Zhuo Mo's eyes flashed. Elder Yi casually picked up a Yin fire Shin bead. He examined it and then slowly said, "It is slightly interesting. Yin fire bead forged with Shin fire. I hadn't thought that someone still knew such an ancient skill." Idiot! Zhuo Mo squeezed out between his teeth with a cunning smile on his face. Elder Yes, I suddenly twitched and his expression changed slightly. Before he could react, boom, the Yin fire shin bead on his fingers suddenly exploded and his figure was enveloped in golden flames. Boom boom boom. The scene of hundreds of Yin fire shin beads exploding in such a narrow area was spectacular. Within the golden flames were even spots of white flame, the terrifying power pushing the golden and white flames up dozens of zhang. The terrifying wave of heat swept outwards in all directions. The defensive Yao arts of the other Yao elders collapsed under this great wave of air. Some of the weaker Yao arts were thrown about as though they were struck with a hammer. All of the king's forbidden city shook. The people watching the battle were almost unable to stay standing as they stared in shock at the pillar of fire that shot into the sky. Experts such as Shuang Yu who were at the edge of Shin power changed expression. The Shin power dense vibrations so roared within that pillar of fire, and he almost couldn't believe his eyes. So there really was a freak in the world that had cultivated Shin power to such a level. The pride hidden deep in Shuang Ye's heart couldn't help but waver at this time. Feng Xianzi looked dazedly and wordlessly at the pillar of fire. If this was him. This thought could not be excised from his mind. His extremities grew cold and his heart continued to sink. Mingyu Ye's expression changed drastically and she could not maintain her calmness. Elder Yi was the strongest person of this group. If even he wasn't a match, then the result would be terrible. Zhuo Mo's expression was smug. Yin fire beads were hard to control, but these Yin fire shin beads were forged in his sun shin power. He could make simple manipulations of the sun shin fire inside the Yin fire shin beads. You should die. A deep roar like that of a wounded animal came out of the pillar of fire. In the corner, the old man who had been idling away relaxedly suddenly opened his eyes, a sharp cold light flashing through them. Whoosh! The pressuring flames extinguished without warning. A figure with an astounding presence slowly walked out of the remnants of the pillar of fire. Everyone was stunned by this scene. How was it possible that someone could survive that kind of explosion, that was Shin power? Zhuo Mo was also stunned. Even he would not survive the power of the hundreds of Yin fire shin beads exploding together. But the other was still alive. But when he saw Elder Ye's appearance, after blinking, he suddenly fell over on the ground and roared with laughter. Ha ha ha, you look too, so special. The people who had been stunned speechless by Elder Ye's terrifying power were startled awake by Zhuo Mo's sudden laughter. When they looked at Elder Yi, muffled laughter rang through the entire venue. They did not dare to be as careless as Zhuo Mo. They hurriedly covered their mouths to stop the sound of laughter from coming out. But their expressions became strange. Elder Ye's hair was a mess as it gave off smoke. His eyes were two black circles like that of a panda. But what really set them off was that his almost naked body had been scorched and looked like that of a zebra. It was unknown what method he had used in the end to block the pillar of fire, but his body was scorched black in regularly spaced streaks. The black and white parts made him look like a zebra. A zebra panda. You should die. Elder Yi was murderous, his eyes filled with blood. That pair of eyes were ravenous. Vast Shin power was like a monster that was twisting its enormous body. With every movement, it let people feel the great power it contained. The expression of the old man in the corner became serious. A hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. This person's Shin power. An almost tangible pressure filled every corner and made people unable to breathe. Even those martial experts changed expression now. In their eyes, Elder Yi that was slowly walking out of the aftermath was like a hope-robbing figure of legend. He only needed to reach out with a hand to crush them into powder. Shock flashed through Shuang Ye's eyes. Zhuo Mo snorted, stopped his jovial attitude and stood up. Facing Elder Yi, he raised his head and stared rebelliously at Elder Yi. Still not admitting defeat? Then I will beat you until you accept it. He almost spat out the last sentence, pausing between each word. His presence reached another level. Each word was like a hammer hitting people in their minds. As his presence increased, the rainbow mists floating in the air seeming to receive a summons to gather rapidly where Zhuo Mo was. Inside the underground cavern, the Yin energy that had been slowly flowing was being drained out of the Yin vein at an astounding rate, and taken up by the king's forbidden city. The earth started to tremble. In this moment, almost everyone had a feeling that the king's forbidden city was waking up. Chapter 742, Intensifies Mo completely entered a rage. Tsing Lianer and the people familiar with him automatically moved far away. They had seen how terrifying and vicious a berserk Mo was. The only one that did not move was a Gui. Dressed in the bone armor, a Gui stood there motionlessly like a statue. Ming Yuyi had never expected that the event would proceed like this. Xiao Mo Gu would definitely become a great threat to the Council of Elders. When this thought popped out, she jumped in fright at her own thought. Gu Liang Dao should be a bigger threat. Gu Liang Dao, who came from Xixian and had the aid of a top expert like Shuang Yu, was very likely to take control of Xixian. But Xiao Mo Gu. A few battalions, a few small territories, he was individually brave, but in front of the Council of Elders, this was a joke. Then look at Xiao Mo Gu's actions, rash, idiotic, without any intelligence. How could such a person threaten the Council of Elders? But this thought was so strong that Ming Yuyi could not dismiss it. However, the present situation did not allow her to think carefully why she would have such an absurd thought. The two sides would go off at any moment, and she was worried that Elder Yi could not win. She suddenly asked the gray-robed elder in a low voice, "Is there any method that can affect the Jinji?" The gray-robed elder was called Elder Lin and was one of the rare elders among the council skilled in Jinji. The reason that Ming Yuyi had brought him along this time was for him to evaluate whether the angel device raiment was real or not. Elder Lin also knew the situation right now was urgent. That wave of Yin fire shin beads had been stopped, but all of the people on their side had been affected. His scalp prickled at the thought of another wave. It is possible to affect it. But it will be very short, only about 20 breaths. That's enough. Ming Yuyi said decisively. At this time, she didn't care about fairness or dueling decorum. Elder Lin understood and a black Yao core appeared on his hand. His expression was pained, but he didn't hesitate to throw the black core out. When the black core landed on the ground, it turned into a ball of black mist. The black mist quickly spread and dyed the seal scripts and Mo matrices floating in the air like a great toxin. The black energy then flowed along the seal scripts and Mo matrices to spread quickly. In a flash, the rainbow mist made out of seal scripts and Mo matrices became inky black. Several black threads had even appeared on the Yin beads in the air. They were frozen in the air, unable to move. A hint of joy appeared on Ming Yuyi's eyes, and her tone was slightly reproachful. "What is this? Why didn't you take out something like this before?" Elder Lin grimaced. "This is black blunting smoke, a kind of Yao core. It can slow Jinji, but its effects are limited, only 20 breaths of time. Once it is used, it needs to be soaked in special medicinal liquid for a month before it can be used again. 20 breaths is enough." Ming Yuyi's words were filled with confidence in Elder Yi. The other elders had overjoyed expressions as though they had already won the battle. Mo immediately detected the effects of the black blunting smoke. The king's forbidden city seemed to be a machine that suddenly rusted, and felt difficult to use. There was something this strange. A hint of astonishment flashed across his mind. "Ha, how's that? You can't do a thing. Boy, you cannot escape, I will kill you." Elder Yi immediately detected the change in the king's forbidden city. His voice was filled with murderousness and savagery. He walked slowly towards Mo. With each step, his presence rose and became stronger like a fire. Mo did not have the time to get rid of this strange black energy as Elder Yi was walking towards him with a snarl. He did not panic. A cold smirk appeared on his face as he spat out, "Idiot." With a wave of his hand, a strange talisman appeared. It was the little Mo treasure cup. This was the only top talisman Mo had. The 7 turtle pattern treasure coins spun rapidly on the surface of the water and sparked occasionally. The little Mo treasure cup was slightly less powerful compared to the angel device raiment, but that was only a difference in how they were forged. The quality of little Mo treasure cup's materials were actually better. The little Mo treasure cup's materials could rival the anti-dragon claw and the 3,000 threads of worry now. When the little Mo treasure cup appeared in Zhuo Mo's hand, Elder Yi suddenly felt a great sense of danger. His expression changed, and he shot backwards. At the same time, he pointed with his fingers which lit up with a bright light. He rapidly drew out a triangle in the air, Shen technique. At this time, a lightning-like light suddenly flew out of Zhuo Mo's hands. The little Mo treasure cup that had consumed an astonishing amount of lightning and now contained that terrifying lightning. With Zhuo Mo using its full power and not keeping anything back, all of the lightning and thunder that the little Mo treasure cup had absorbed on the day of its creation blasted out with his Shen power. The treasure coin that was covered with lightning and Shen power could not endure such terrifying power and was reduced into a liquid ball of metal. The silver energy was bright and burning as it charged straight into Elder Yi's triangle. Boom! The silver light was so blinding that no one could keep their eyes open. Shen power turbulence were like little razors that scattered about. Everyone was shocked and threw up their defenses. However, any Mo skill or Yao art was unimaginably fragile in front of this shock wave, they all shattered. In that moment, almost every person had small wounds on their body. Many people changed expression immediately. When was the last time they had been wounded? Many people couldn't even remember. There was nothing better than this experience to let them understand the greatness of Shen power. Shen power era. A person that did not cultivate Shen power would be abandoned by this era. Even if they once stood at the top, it was the same for them. Zhuo Mo and Elder Yi would not have thought that the fight between them would strengthen the determination of all those present to find Shen power. The pride of the experts at the peak of this era did not allow them to tolerate being killed in the future and be left unable to fight back like insects. The light dissipated and the 2 figures once again appeared. Elder Yi's left arm was limply hanging, a burnt black hole penetrating his right arm. Zhuo Mo was not much better. The little Mo treasure cup in his hand was completely dim, covered in cracks, and his expression was slightly pale. In order to use the strongest attack, Zhuo Mo had furiously channeled Shen power into the little Mo treasure cup. This attack was powerful, but little Mo treasure cup had been overloaded with Shen power and damaged irreparably. Most importantly, Zhuo Mo had used a great amount of Shen power. Elder Yi gazed at Zhuo Mo poisonously as though he wanted to consume the other alive. He was filled with fury. His Shen power was stronger than Xiao Mo guess, but he had been suppressed by Xiao Mo Gu. The other's moves were endless and hard to predict. The more he fought, the worse he felt. Ming Yu Ye's face was ashen. She looked in shock at Xiao Mo Gu. All of the Yao Council elders looked at Xiao Mo Gu as though they were looking at a ghost. Elder Yi was one of the 10 Yao of the Council of Elders. Unlike what normal people understood, the Yao Council of Elders was an extremely large organization with all elders each having their own roles. But the 10 Yao were the special existence in the council because they were the strongest 10 Yao of the council. They were given prestigious positions, yet they did not have to work. However, all the elders were in awe of and respected them. The power of the 10 elders determined the status of the 10 Yao. Even someone with power in the council like Ming Yu Yi was respectful to them. Elder Yi was the 10th Yao of the Council of Elders. How could someone like this be wounded? Ha, come. Let's see what else you have. Elder Yi roared with laughter. Before he finished, a presence suddenly exploded nearby. No! A wild howl carried out with the burst of air. Elder Yao's smile suddenly froze. Zhuo Mo's eyes flashed coldly. They turned their face and their eyes widened. A strange and borderless field of power was released within a figure covered in white flames at the center. Feng Xinz. Feng Xinz felt the restrictions on him were much weaker. The black blunting smoke was like a great toxin that infected all of the Mo matrices and seal scripts. The rainbow mist around him were dyed black. Feng Xinz felt joy. This was the best chance to break free. If he could break free. He raised his head and accidentally saw Ming Yu's pale face and that flash of fear in her eyes. In that moment, he seemed to be struck by lightning, his mind completely blank. She had always been so calm and at ease, she had always been determined, she had always been so proud. Recovering from his daze, Feng Xinz felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. There seemed to be a knife stabbing again and again at his heart as it bled. Feng Xinz bit down on his lips. The crimson blood dripped off the corner of his mouth, yet he did not feel it. That ashen and scared face entered his vision, and stabbed his eyes to the point he couldn't keep them open. That helpless and frightened figure was the person he had sworn to protect. Feng Xinz's handsome and sunny face twisted suddenly. He lowered his eyes filled with pain and deep self-blame. He really was useless. Useless. He was filled with fury, fury at his own uselessness. His halo as a genius was completely torn off. The tendons in his face bulged, his body uncontrollably trembling due to fury. He had never hated himself so much, never. Suddenly, something seemed to be ignited inside his body. Boom, a strong burning feeling filled his body, his blood seemed to be boiling, he felt as though he was burning. Before his consciousness blanked out, he instinctively shouted out, "No." The white and tender hyacinths that surrounded him were swallowed by the white flames that erupted. Chapter 743, Strategy. Feng Xinz's explosion was unexpected to all. His Shen power that had shot up several levels immediately caused his presence to be filled with an intimidating danger. Terrifying Shen pressure caused the suffocating black clouds to once again press on everyone's minds. A hint of joy flashed across Ming Yu's eyes. She had seen Feng Xinz's potential. In the Council of Elders that was full of experts, other than potential and youth, Feng Xinz did not have any advantages. Even so, she hadn't expected Feng Xinz would give her a surprise. Zhuo also was slightly surprised. The Shen power that Feng Xinz just displayed was not strong, but it was the most detailed of everyone he had seen. The records had mentioned this kind of situation before. It was rare, like an epiphany. However, the difference was one was when a person was in an excited state, and the other in a calm state. However, he turned his gaze back to Elder Yi in front of him. The old man was more of a threat than Feng Xinz. As to Feng Xinz, there would be people to deal with him. As he expected, he saw Tseng Lianer appear like a ghost near Feng Xinz. Listening to the hateful old man howling about killing him, Zhuo's murderousness rose. You want to kill Ji on guest territory? You're tired of living. Little Mo Gu had disliked the overbearing Yao Council of Elders for a long time, they were endlessly arrogant. The small-minded little Mo Gu could not tolerate someone more arrogant than he was in front of him. You think that if there isn't the king's forbidden city, Ji can't do anything to you? Zhuo smirked darkly inside. He put away the dim little Mo treasure cup, and then put out something black. It was the happily sleeping black gold seal soldier. Glutton! Come out! Bam 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 bam! Zhuo kicked repeatedly, the sound of his foot hitting metal hard causing people's hearts to feel cold. The black gold seal soldier opened his eyes in bewilderment and seemed to sleep talk. Big bro, is it mealtime? Mealtime? Zhuo smiled temptingly. Yes, we are preparing to eat. But this old man has come to interrupt and won't let us leave. He's interrupting our mealtime. The black gold seal soldier's eyes turned red, his expression murderous and snarling. He suddenly turned around and his howl echoed in people's ears as though he had seen his archenemy. He dares to interrupt mealtime. The black gold seal soldier murderously climbed up, his four limbs on the ground, his body slightly crouched like a panther as he shot out. Little Mo Gu showed a smile at his plan's success. Pia, He snapped his fingers and shouted smugly at Agui. Agui, let's go. Agui's figure suddenly disappeared. At the same time, Zuemo shot at the shocked Elder Yi. Big brother, he really is the peerlessly heroic Xiao Mo Gu that you spoke of? Shuang Yu had to turn his face to not look and weakly asked Gu Liang Dao. 3 against 1, so shameless, so devious, so low. This completely upended Shuang Ye's innocent view of the world. Wasn't this things that bad people would do? Even more shameless because Xiao Mo Gu was actually of the same strength as Elder Yi, yet he still ganged up. Shuang Yu suddenly felt that Yao Elder was pitiful, really pitiful. Gu Liang Dao also couldn't bear to look. He was a heroic person and never did something like bully the old and the young. He coughed to disguise the awkwardness on his face as he thought furiously. This really is a kind of strategy, more fighting less, this is a law of battle. Right, it definitely is like that. Look, the Yao have more people, in terms of total number, Xiao Mo Gu is the less fighting the more. He is attacking the crowd alone, such outstanding combat instincts. But, Shuang Yu felt that Big Brother was right but also felt that it wasn't right somewhere. No matter the time, do not miss the importance of strategy. Gu Liang Dao sternly warned Shuang Yu. Oh. Shuang Yu said in semi-understanding. The other Yao elders, upon finding that Elder Yi was about to be attacked by multiple people, could not suppress themselves, also acted in hopes of helping Elder Yi. Gu Liang Dao was relieved of a great burden. He said, look, fighting with few against many. Shuang Ye's eyes suddenly lit up. Should we help him? Gu Liang Dao coughed. Do not underestimate Xiao Mo Gu. With my understanding of him, he definitely has other tricks. Shuang Yu nodded, and looked with anticipation at the intense battle on the field, excitement on his face. Gu Liang Dao wiped away the sweat on his forehead with lingering trepidation. Of course Suemo noticed the Yao elders that wanted to attack. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You underestimate Geist King's Forbidden City. The seal scripts and MO matrices effects were greatly influenced by the black blunting smoke. But that was the King's Forbidden Firmament. This green city possessed its power. While it was not complete, and its power was limited, it still could not be looked down upon. There at least wasn't a problem in getting a chance for him to surround and attack. His hands moving, the shaking of the King's Forbidden City suddenly stopped. All the Yao elders suddenly felt the scenery change, their surroundings turning misty. All of the sounds and people disappeared. They seemed to be standing on an endless wilderness, light mist floating ethereally. Illusory formation. The two words jumped into everyone's minds. Yes, it was an illusory formation. Many of the Yao elders showed expressions of disdain. For people of their level, illusory formations were not an acceptable tactic. But unexpectedly, they used all they knew, but the scene in front of them still didn't change. Why was it like this? Was this not an illusory formation? The elders stared at each other. Suemo naturally would not miss on such a good chance. The two people and the seal soldier shot at Elder Yi. The illusions of the city had many Jinji methods that he had found from his memories, the ones his father had left behind. These illusory spells were not the same as other illusory spells. He believed there would be people here that could resolve them, but they would require some time. This was a chance. Elder Yi was disheveled as he was attacked by 3 people. Xiao Mo Gu's power had shocked him, and he hadn't expected the female dressed in gray armor to be so terrifying and powerful. Adding on a seal soldier that was fearless and seemed mad, he immediately ended up in great danger. Elder Yi's heart continued to sink. Damn it! Was he going to die today? The black gold seal soldier's eyes were wide as he spread his arms and ran towards Elder Yi. This unconventional action caused Elder Yi's heart to shake. His left hand struck towards the black gold seal soldier. But before he finished, the presence of a Shin technique on Zuomo's hand caused him unable to spare any attention for anything else. He put the fingers on his right hand together, his Shin technique waiting to be released, Shin technique against Shin technique. Yet Xiao Mo Gu suddenly showed the smile of one whose plan had succeeded. Elder Ye's expression changed and he thought that it was not good. Before he could react, there was a heavy blow to his neck. He immediately lost consciousness. Idiot! Zuemo smugly raised his hand that had been faking presence, the light of the Shin technique fading. Boom boom boom. Among a string of packed explosion, the Yao elders showed their disheveled figures, yet the scene in front of them caused everyone to turn into the stone. Zuemo had a foot stepping on the unconscious Elder Yi. He smugly grinned and showed his white teeth. I think we need to have a talk. Bi-han came back. After coming back, Bi-han and Gongsun Cha exchanged a look but didn't exchange a word. Many people speculated secretly about the return of Sin Battalion. But Little Miss and Bi-han did not mention a word about what Sin Battalion had gone to do. The two biggest heads were silent, and the other people naturally did not dare to pick this topic. But the return of Sin Battalion meant that their power grew. Everyone was excited. Up until now, all of the battle plans had proceeded smoothly. However, everyone also knew that this was just the beginning. What was next was the true test, because what was next were the resources jies. Resource jies were referring to those jie with great amounts of resources. They were the best part of all of Xian Kong Temple. Due to this, there were countless eyes staring at them. There were no tricks to taking down these resource jie. The only way was to steal from the mouth of the tiger. The upcoming battles would be hard and intense. The number of battalions they had encountered in the last few days had increased greatly. But no one was afraid. All of them were rubbing their hands and yearning to go. The present Mo Cloud Sea was not famous but had many commanders. Other than the two top battle generals Gongsun Cha and Bi-han, Miao Jun, Shu Long, Wei Ran, Jia Ji, Tang Fei, and the others were all battle generals that could control one area. It was these people that had continued to advance that gave Gongsun Cha the confidence to plan this astounding campaign. Behind them, Gongsun Cha's seal formation forts were being built day and night. They were mostly finished. This meant that they did not have to worry about the supply lines at the rear. The conference this time was the last collective conference. Gongsun Cha did not say much. Up until now, they had not encountered true trouble in the plans they had made before. In the following battle, most of the forces were about to be split up, and the battalions would advance on their own. The time to test these people have arrived. Gongsun Cha had an imperceptible smile. When he had designed this plan, he had thoughts of giving these people the chance to be independent. If they were always under his shadow, they would not be able to truly grow. For the mission this time, he had even called Ma Fan over. The best training ground for a battle general was the battlefield. While this campaign was crucial for Mo Cloud Sea, it did not mean that they couldn't afford to lose even one battle. Gongsun Cha also knew that this campaign would become a crucial campaign that would affect the Four Realms and even the world. After dividing up Xian Kong Temple, Kunlu and Tianhuan would be unprecedentedly large. There would be a period of peace in the middle because Kunlun and Tianhuan needed time to digest the fruits of victory. Once the two titans finished digesting, the days of the other factions would become hard. Due to this, their only chance of survival was to strengthen themselves before that. Also, having this batch of battle generals truly grow up was the crux to having Mo Cloud Sea grow strong. The present situation was not so dangerous. With him and Bi-han, they could afford to lose. When it finally came to that time when they faced the two titans, they could not afford to lose. He only hoped that Shixiang would return soon. Gongsun Cha gathered his thoughts and threw out coolly. Everyone, fight! The commanders roared a response. Chapter 744, The Identity of the Old Man. Seeing Ming Yu Yi and the Yao elders leave with their tails between their legs, Zue Mo was lost in thought and did not seem to notice them. The Mo in the surroundings looked at him with awe and respect. Any person that managed to extort a top treasure, the death thought bead, from the Yao elders were worthy of respect. Ming Yuyi had been decisive. It was worth it to trade the death thought bead for Elder Yi, one of the 10 Yao. Elder Yi now owed her a favor. This was a good thing. Also, she had obtained a much stronger Feng Xinz. As to the death thought bead, that was the public property of the Council of Elders and she did not care as it was not her personal loss. While her mission had failed this time, her individual strength had grown greatly. The most valuable gain from this trip was their experience in fighting with Shin power, which would be of great help in helping them perfect Shin power. Both Elder Yi and Feng Xinz were the ones that had benefited directly and the most. They had a deeper comprehension of Shin power. Ming Yuyi knew that these two people were crucial and they were in her camp, and would greatly increase her status in the Council of Elders. If she could advance the Yao Shin power system, no one would be able to shake her position, and she was likely to ascend to the position of Chief Elder. No one knew Ming Yuyi's thoughts. All of the Yao elders had dispirited expressions. Everything they had endured today in their view was a humiliation. A grudge had undoubtedly been created between Zhua Mo and the Yao Council of Elders. However, both Ming Yuyi and Zhua Mo did not care too much about this. For Ming Yuyi, her goal was the seat of Chief Elder. Before she took power, she did not have any direct conflict with Xiao Mo Gu. It was the opposite. After seeing Xiao Mo Gu's great strength, she had even thought of allying with Xiao Mo Gu. If she had such a strong helper outside the Council of Elders, it would be beneficial for her faction. There were many rules the Council of Elders had to abide by. She was restrained. Her influence outside the Council of Elders would not be affected and there would be many convenient uses for such an ally. Ming Yuyi had smiled as though there had been no conflict at all as she briskly agreed to Zhua Mo's request. Even Zhua Mo had been surprised. However, this increased Zhua Mo's wariness of her. This woman was very strong. Little Mo Gu felt that he definitely could not be like her, going from fighting in a life and death battle in one moment to chatting with a smile the next. She was also decisive and did not hesitate once she made a decision. While he did not like this type of person, Zhua Mo had to admire Ming Yuyi's strength. He also had a feeling. This woman would definitely have great power and influence in the future. Shaking his head, Zhua Mo turned his head and laughed at himself. That had nothing to do with him. Zhua Mo decided to ignore Ming Yuyi's hidden intention to establish a good relationship at the end. You had to guard against an ally like this, someone who might stab you in the back at any time. We also have to go. Gu Yang Dao came over and had a hug with Zhua Mo. Zhua Mo noticed the gazes that had gathered on them. He couldn't help but ask, "Do you want us to accompany you?" Gu Yang Dao laughed brightly. "Ha, no need, there's Xiao Yu, and now there is the Birdman suit, it will crush anyone that comes." Birdman suit. Zhua Mo's temple throbbed. "I will protect Big Brother." Shuang Yu weakly guarantee from the side. "Alright, be careful during your travel." Zhua Mo could only say. "Don't worry. Work hard. Us brothers will meet again in the future." Gu Yang Dao took a wineskin from his waist and, after taking a great swallow, handed it to Zhua Mo. Zhua Mo took the wineskin and also took a deep gulp. He felt as though there was a fire burning in his chest. "Yes. Us brothers will meet in the future." "Ha! Xiao Yu, let's go." Gu Yang Dao laughed and walked out with his head up high. Shuang Yu waved at Zhua Mo and then followed closely. The two flew out of the king's forbidden city. A troop flew out of the crowd and formed a protective perimeter with them in the middle. It was Gu Yang Dao's personal guard. Zhua Mo's worries were finally put to rest and then he laughed. Gu Yang Dao looked simple-minded but he was a daring and detail-minded person. How could he not have any plans? "Everyone, the spectacle is over, you may do as you please." Zhua Mo glanced over the other people and then ignored them. He was preparing to go back to Cloud Sea Jia. Oh, it was now called Mo Cloud Sea. He needed a safe place to have a Gue use the 5-element Soul Dan, and the death thought bead. The MO territories were clearly not a good place. He also needed time to go through his memories in detail. He hoped he would get back to MO Cloud C in time for the fighting and see if there were any places he could help. But before leaving, he still had some problems to resolve. He turned to walk towards the old man in the corner. The old man did not seem to be surprised to see him coming. "Who are you? Why did I not find you in my memories?" Zhuo asked directly. The old man grinned, but his gaze was cold. "Of course, how can the Zhuo family's young master's memories have an impression of a little person like me?" Zhuo frowned. The old man's tone showed his friendlessness. "There is enmity between us." "Not really, but your grandmother exiled me," the old man said coolly. Zhuo was shocked. "Exiled?" The old man narrowed his eyes and said humorously, "In the Zhuo family, practicing Shin power is restricted. However, I had the duty of guarding the Shin device, and I managed to get a few hints. A secret will never remain hidden forever. Your grandmother discovered I had learned it. I hadn't expected the old woman's Shin power to be greater than mine. There was no way about it. But the old woman still thought of my past service, and only excited me to a desolate Jie." Zhuo felt his mind was a mess. There was too much information contained in the old man's words. This old man's entire life could be said to be in the old woman's hands. She probably knew that she didn't have much time left back then, so she brought her to you and nurtured her to be your person. This way, this old man could not stand by and ignore what happened afterwards. She really was cunning. The old man said coldly. "You are a Gui's." Zhuo's eyes widened and he threw all his other questions to the back of his head. "A Gui?" The old man stilled and his eyes suddenly narrowed and flashed coldly. "She's your ghost?" Some memory fragments flashed across Zhuo's mind. He nodded. "And the old woman really schemed well. Even in death, she does not let others rest." The old man turned to look at a Gui with pity and guilt. His tone was filled with unfriendliness. "No wonder she is loyal to you, and turned herself into this ghastly state." "My pitiful granddaughter." Zhuo's body shook. The old man was a Gui's grandfather. The old man suddenly lost interest. "Let's go and talk more on the road." When Zhuo's group finished packing up and left Buzhou City, a figure carrying a sword covered in dust appeared on the horizon nearby. Zhuo was overjoyed. "Eldest Shixiang." Wei Xing smiled as he carried his sword. Liang Wei's face was dark. In front of him was an order telling him to stop working and reflect on his actions. The cause of this was very simple. He had captured a Kunlun scout and managed to extract an extremely valuable piece of information. Kunlun was busy swallowing Xiankong Temple, and most of the battalions on that region's defense line had been moved towards Xiankong realm except for a few. He thought this was a rare chance and reported the situation. Yet his report seemed to have dissolved in the ocean. Nothing came back. This was not unexpected. As the battle on the front lines was in a stalemate, he had been reassigned and was now under the banner of Ensure Corps. Corps Commander Ensure was old and experienced with a great reputation among the Yao that normal corps commanders could not rival. Theoretically, this was not a disservice to him. However, Corps Commander Ensure favored defensive tactics over offensive ones and seemed overly conservative to Liang Wei. No matter what kind of battle plan he suggested, they were never accepted. Without fighting, Liang Wei's days passed as though they were years. Corps Commander Ensure was dissatisfied with his restlessness, and moved him to a position of no real power. If he hadn't had an accomplished record of service, he would probably have been kicked out already. Unwilling to waste his days, Liang Wei led a few guards and sneaked into the front lines alone to act as scouts. The secret was hard to keep, especially after Liang Wei had suggested attacking to Corps Commander Ensure based on the gathered intel. The anger of Corps Commander Ensure could be imagined. So the order to be relieved of his duties and reflect appeared in front of him. Feeling depressed, Liang Wei rang into the 10-finger prison and wanted to vent himself through war chess. With his skill level, he naturally won in war chess. He quickly found himself bored. Coming out of war chess, he dazedly roamed about. He suddenly saw someone familiar and he became alert. A Shao. The person who had a hurried expression immediately stopped. When he saw Liang Wei, a smile bloomed on his face. Wei Wei. Long time no see. Aren't you at the front lines? How come you have the time to come to the 10-finger prison? Hearing the slightly feminine name, Wei Wei, Liang Wei felt slightly helpless but also warm. A Shao was a good friend of his from the Yao art house, but unlike him who entered the military, a Shao's marks were not good enough to enter the military. Don't mention it. I did something wrong. I've been relieved of my duties and ordered to reflect, Liang Wei said, pretending to be unconcerned. A Shao's expression was surprised. Liang Wei had been outstanding in the Yao art house and been tasked with great responsibility after entering the military corps. His achievements from last time had been broadcast far and wide and he had been called the next upcoming star of the Yao. Why was he relieved of his duties and ordered to reflect? But a Shao perceptively did not press. He smiled and said, haha, then relax. Come with me to a place. Liang Wei, who had nothing to do, naturally agreed. The two quickly came to a place with a sign, Pupa's Home for Battle Generals. What place is this? A battle general club? Liang Wei looked around curiously. You'll know when you go in. A Shao kept it a secret. They saw several people along the way, but there wasn't even one silver battle general. Liang Wei felt dismissive of this establishment. This was probably another place for low-level battle generals to boast. Do you want to become a top battle general? Pupa's Home for Battle Generals will give you the wings to fly. There will be a famed teacher every week, simulations every day. As long as you persist, you can become a battle general. Liang Wei's disdain grew with the ads. This was the advertising of those training courses that were used to defraud people of money. A Shao would actually believe something like this. He was just about to speak when he suddenly saw a phrase out of the corner of his eye. He stopped walking, and lightning seemed to explode in his mind. Battle is changing, have you detected it? Chapter 745, New Era. In this turbulent era, the changes of the world were so rapid they dazzled the eyes. In the span of a night, the world had completely changed. In this period of time, some major events had occurred. What was most attention-catching was the division of Xian Kong Temple's territory. Countless factions leapt towards them like hungry wolves. The ones that benefited the most were Kunlun and Tianhuan. The two's power grew enormously and they became two titans that were so large it was frightening. The Mo territories filled with its heroes entered an era of consolidation. In the 100 Savage realm, the Mo Shan Temple was the strongest, then it was the Mo Martial Alliance led by Marshal D, and the Heroes Alliance led by Marshal Hao. In the distant and remote Nether realm, the first king of the Nether realm came to power, the Nether King. This shook all of the Mo territories. The birth of the Nether King attracted the eyes of the entire world. This meant that the Mo now had a faction that could rival Kunlun, Tianhuan, and the Yao. Compared to the Xiuzhou world and the Mo territories, the Yao were much quieter. Ming Yuyi entered the highest power ranks of the Council of Elders, becoming the 13th-seat Inner Council, and became the youngest Inner Council elder in history. Already famous, Ming Yuyi's prestige reached a whole new level. Other than this, Gu Yangdao's strength grew enormously after he obtained the Angel Device raiment. His strongest expert, Shuang Yu, became famous after killing 3 Mo marshals in a single battle. Many of the people under Gu Yangdao's command were unknown before, but the other factions now lusted for them. Under the talented Shao who started as an accountant, the development of Gu Yangdao's territory was fierce. Gu Yangdao, Shuang Yu, Shao, these 3 disciples came from Xixian. Their light was enough to make all of Xixian seem dim in comparison. They had the name of the Xixian's talented trio. Of course, Shi Xian would never admit to this. Other than this, there was one other faction that attracted attention from different powers, Mo Cloud Sea. Mo Cloud Sea's growth had also been fueled by Xian Kong Temple's downfall. In a military blitz, Mo Cloud Sea had quickly taken 56 Jia in just 6 months. In the 6 months, they had defeated and forced back dozens of surrounding powers, defeating hundreds of battalions, including 2 from Kunlun and Tianhuan. Such a domineering and fierce power immediately caused the neighboring powers to fear it. Just as everyone thought that another great power would take form, unexpected, after swallowing the 56 Jia, Mo Cloud Sea stopped expanding without any warning. At this time, no one had the time to think about this. The collapse of Xian Kong Temple was an unparalleled feast. Its enormous size and richness of resources was definitely among the top of the factions who had collapsed in the last few thousand years. The 56 Jia was just a small piece of this great and grand banquet. The eyes of the factions were on the territories that had not yet been divided. The one that fought the hardest was Kunlun, Tianhuan, and the last remaining 9 great Diana sects of the 10 great Diana sections. The powerful Kunlun and Tianhuan took about 1/5 of Xian Kong Temple each, the 9 great Diana sects took 2/5 of Xian Kong Temple, and the last fifth had been split by the other powers. The great Xian Kong Temple that had once been one of the 4 great sects crushed and existed only in the records. When this banquet gradually came to an end and people started to calculate their spoils, they found to their shock that the 56 Jia that Mo Cloud Sea took over made up some of the best parts of Xian Kong Temple's territories. Numerous factions wanted to move against Mo Cloud Sea. The factions that had been defeated did not dare, but other factions that thought they were strong enough were deeply tempted by the 56 resource Jias. But when the battalions reached the 56 Jia they found, to their shock, that densely arrayed Jinji forts had been built up at some unknown time. The layers of densely arranged Jinji gave off blinding light that caused those to look to feel their scalp prickle and to inhale sharply. Everyone was shocked by Mo Cloud Sea's wealth, manpower, and resources. They could not understand how they were able to set up such perfect Jinji forts in such a short amount of time. They scouted around to probe, and could not find a weak point. There were more experienced battle generals that spent a lot of time to investigate all the Jinji on the borders. When they mapped out the positions of the forts, they found that these Jinji forts connected together in a strong defensive formation. The Jinji forts were not simply designed to guard the Jia rivers. They connected to each other and were placed in a carefully planned and orderly fashion. The complexity almost surpassed a person's imagination. The forts formed layers of defenses that were so exquisitely planned that any factions that attacked it would become off bloody. Mo Cloud Sea only needed to use a small number of battalions and the defense line would be stable. If the enemy wanted to attack, there was no other methods than attacking the forts one by one. The others' expansion plan had been planned in great detail. Those that paid attention read a strong desire to expand into the surrounding territories using this defense line. However, what truly caused people to pay attention to Mo Cloud Sea was the return of Gongye Xiaorong. When Gongye Xiaorong returned to Tianhuan with the remnants of his battalion, with not even 900 people left, all of Tianhuan was overjoyed. People quickly learned that Gongye Xiaorong had been defeated by Gongsun Cha. Gongsun Cha's reputation moved up a level. As people paid attention, the secret that the master of Mo Cloud Sea, Zhou Mo, was Xiao Mo Gu also floated up. The other top-level battle general, Bihan, also started appearing. Thinking about the 2 top battle generals holding the forts, no one dared to target them. Even Kunlun and Tianhun didn't dare to move rashly, much less the other factions. The battle to divide Xian Kong Temple raged for 2 years before finally ending. There were many riddles in this time. The biggest riddle was the disappearance of Xian Kong Temple's Sutra Library and the Diana Treasure Pavilion. When the invading factions, with Kunlun in the lead, hurriedly got to the main peak of Xian Kong Temple, they found that someone else had gotten there first. Xian Kong Temple's main peak was a sea of flames, the Sutra Library and the Diana Treasure Pavilion completely cleaned out. The news shocked the world. The sutra library collected all of the spells of Xian Kong Temple. The Dhyana Treasure Pavilion contained all the treasures that 1,000 generations had gathered. If Xian Kong Temple was a feast, then the Sutra Library and the Dhyana Treasure Pavilion was the main course. All of the factions that participated in the invasion were enraged. But even after many years, they hadn't found any clues. The thieves seemed to have disappeared and not left behind one clue. Many masters skilled in divination tried to search, but there was nothing obtained. The thieves had been skilled and used a special method to disguise everyone. The Xiuzhou world, the Mo territories, and the Yao, the entire world entered a temporary period of fragile peace. The world situation was maintained for 5 years. For Mo Cloud Sea, these 5 years were crucial, especially for development of Shin methodologies. 5 years ago, Shin power was a mysterious and distant thing for the average person, a field that only the top factions could touch. But right now, after 5 years of development, all kinds of Shin power appeared like bamboo after a rain. The most famous were the Kunlun's Shin power, the Tianhuan's Shin glyphs. Shi Xian had the 5-element Shin power, but the consensus was that the purer 5-element Shin power was the reverse 5-element Shin power created by Shuangyu under Guliang Dao. This reinforced the belief that Shi Xian's power and influence was in decline. The 9 great Dhyana sects had many Dhyana heart Shin power, and Dhyana thought Shin power. There were many kinds, but not having inherited Xian Kong Temple scripture as well as the Shin power they had created, these 9 factions had not developed a Shin method that could rank at the top Shin powers. Among the top Shin powers in the Xiuzhou world, Mo Cloud Sea's Mo Cloud Shin power was the most attention-catching. Unlike the other Shin powers, Mo Cloud Shin power was unique in cultivating with the 3 powers as the fundamentals. Of course, the reason for this was the master of Mo Cloud Sea, Zhua Mo. The rumors among the common people was that Lin Qian had comprehended Kun Luan Shin power after a fight against Zhua Mo. Due to this, the other factions put a great focus on spying on Mo Cloud Sea and investigating their Shin power. Many factions that had mastered Shin power hoped to use their findings to break through. Even though Zhua Mo and the others had thought of many ways to stop the Shin methodology from being leaked, but the most fundamental Shin methodology was still inevitably leaked in the end. With such large-scale practice, it was difficult to prevent the spread of the basic Shin methodology. But the people who got the Mo Cloud Shin power method quickly found that, compared to the other powers, Mo Cloud Shin power was the hardest to cultivate. It required cultivating all 3 powers and meant that the amount of time one had to spend was at least 3 times. People quickly lost interest in Mo Cloud Shin power. They turned their attention to the Shin powers that had originated from Ling power. They were more familiar with Ling power, and the Shin power used Ling power as the base was more fitting to their needs. No matter how good the Mo Cloud Shin power was, they could only use it as an example. The fundament Shin methodology of Kun Luan and Tianhuan spread. These basic methods were not enough for people to actually reach Shin power, but it was of great inspiration to other sections. It allowed them to understand which direction they should develop in. The path that Kun Luan and Tianhuan tread on was what they needed. Reality proved that not all genius were in the major sections. All the talents of the major sects secluded themselves to create their own sect's Shin power. In this period of time, all kinds of Shin power had been created. The great majority of them couldn't even reach the 3rd rank, but there were Shin powers that were unique among them. For everyone, Shin power was no longer going to be a term that was mysterious, unknown, and distant. As Shin power continued to develop, the difference between the major sects quickly grew smaller. The Xiuzhou world seemed to recover to a new equilibrium. However, some sects continued to struggle and many sects managed to capitalize on this opportunity. There would be a new Shin power being created every day. The Shin power system of the Xiuzhou world was being enriched and perfected. It was an exciting and vibrant era filled with life. People enthusiastically created, cultivated Shin power. Everyone was filled with curiosity and anticipation towards this completely new power. This was a blooming era. This was an energetic era, this was an era where 100 flowers bloomed, this was an era where opportunity and danger coexisted, this was an era of geniuses. This was a completely new era. The era of Shin power. Chapter 746, Shin device. In this 5-year period, MO Cloud C did not expand. The Jinji defense line completely separated MO Cloud C from the outside world. This isolationist stance caused MO Cloud C to seem even more mysterious in the eyes of other factions. There were only a rare few that knew how much MO Cloud C had developed. The fighting to divide Xian Kong Temple had continued for 2 years, but for MO Cloud C, it had only been 6 months. Adding on the 5 years period of peace, the MO Cloud C had was 6 years and 6 months of peace, 1 year and 6 months more than the other powers. In this 6 years and 6 months of time, MO Cloud C developed at an astounding rate each day. From a long time ago, Zhua Mo had given the Shin methodology to the core members of MO Cloud C. MO Cloud C had started developing in this area many years earlier than everyone else. According to the knowledge that Zhua Mo supplied, the MO Cloud Shin methodology that all of MO Cloud C helped develop was already very mature. MO Cloud C drew inspiration from Zhua Mo's Sun Shin methodology, the Green Vine Shin methodology, the Mist Shin methodology, and the Undying Shin methodology that came from the Undying Shin punishment. While one still needed to cultivate the 3 powers, but MO Cloud C, which possessed the Pu Wei library, quickly found suitable methods from the Yao and MO powers. Unlike big sects like Kunlun and Tianhuan, MO Cloud C didn't have any Fanqiu. This past weakness now became a great advantage. Other than this, the seal inscriptions of Golden Crow Camp developed far beyond what the outer world imagined. Other than the inscription of Shin glyphs, which was still immature, they had developed the inscription of Mo matrices, Yao cores, and seal scripts. They even created a completely new cultivation method that merged inscribing and MO Cloud C Shin methodology. They even used this to create 2 new terrifying battalions, the New Guard Camp and Sin Battalion. However, the accomplishments of Golden Crow Camp were not limited to just this. Even Zhua Mo, the person who had founded Golden Crow Camp, had never thought that Golden Crow Camp would develop to such a level. The present Golden Crow Cloud Island was heavily guarded. Large and vicious cloud steeds flew through the clouds and continued to land on the Cloud Island. Having obtained all kinds of secret husbandry methods from the 3 races, Chun Yuqing continued to breed, research, nurture, and spend. He finally bred a completely new powerful species that was unlike Mo steeds, Ling beasts, or Yao beasts. In the end, he named them Cloud Steeds. The Cloud Steeds had something very unique. They had 3 beast cores inside their bodies and they possessed the 3 powers. However, because the numbers were limited, only the core members of MO Cloud C possessed them. In MO Cloud C, Cloud Steeds were a symbol of status. It was rare for so many important people to appear at the same time at Golden Crow Cloud Island. The disciples on the island were restless, but no one dared to ask questions. On Golden Crow Cloud Island, there were too many things to keep secret. All the upper levels of MO Cloud C, without exception, had come. Under the guidance of the 2 masters, they disappeared into the Jinji. Inside the Jinji, everyone's gazes were attracted by 2 suits of armor. The 2 sets of armor silently floated in front of them, one as bright as fire, the other silver-white like frost. The 2 masters wore an expression of pride. Master Sun Boa's tone was cool but filled with strong confidence. These are 2 sets of Shin device raiments. Shin device raiments. Boom! The crowd exploded. No one had thought that Golden Crow Camp were already able to forge Shin device raiments. It had been 7 whole years since Zhua Mo had forged the Angel device raiment. In these 7 years, so much had changed. This included Shin devices. 1 year ago, Kunlun was the first to announce the creation of the first Shin device, capable person. In the next month, Tianhuan also announced Tianhuan's first Shin device called the Weaving Girl's Shuttle. Then Shi Xian announced the existence of Floatingly Fire. However, almost all of the Shin devices used Zhua Mo's naming pattern, raiment. And almost all of the Shin devices had been formed into armor. Even Kunlun, who was famous for its swords, were not an exception. This was because they found that this structure, which covered the entire body, could use Shin power to its greatest effect and was helpful in controlling Shin power. Everyone had been waiting for Zhuo Mo to forge a new Shin device. No one had expected Golden Crow Camp to be the first to forge them. Actually, we had considered forging Shin devices a long time ago because we have the most complete information on the method. We had initial thoughts, but we quickly faced a problem: what kind of Shin device to forge? Then we asked Darren for his opinion, and Darren suggested for us to forge Battle General Shin device raiments. Battle General Shin device raiments. This answer had been unexpected by all. Gongsun Cha and Bihan's eyes suddenly lit up. Zhuo Mo spoke at this time. Yes, there is one important reason that we have been able to get to where we are. It is because we possess two top battle generals. So we first forged Battle General Shin devices. Shin power is continuing to level up. From the beginning where only a few cultivated it to now where everyone is cultivating it. Future battalions will be comprised of soldiers that cultivate Shin power, and what will change is the method of battle. We will only truly be ahead of the others if we are the most advanced in this area. Everyone had thoughtful expression. Many people nodded inwardly, especially the battle generals. They felt this even more directly and deeper. The silver one is Gongsun Darren's raiment. It is called City Destroyer. 1. Gongsun Cha's smile froze on his face. The other people covered their mouths, their facial muscles furiously trembling as they forced themselves to not laugh out loud. Afraid of being blamed, Master Sun Bao hurriedly added, Darren personally named it. Zhuo Mo's smile froze. He swore at Sun Bao inside, piling a smile on his face. Shitty, this is a good omen. One smile to destroy cities, in the span of one smile, take down a city, how great is that? Actually, if it wasn't. I feel that one smile to destroy a Jia is even better. In one smile, destroy a Jia, ha ha ha. When he got to the end, Zhuo Mo pretended to be cheerful and laughed. The expressions of the other people became even more pained, their faces under their hands became even more twisted. If they offended Lil Miss Darren, then their future days would be dark. Gongsun Cha smiled slightly and said unaffectedly, this name is good. It was over, he had offended Gongsun Shitty. Zhuo Mo wiped away the sweat on his brow. Master Ji Wei quickly changed the topic. Bihan Darren's set is called Arsonist. Bihan expressionlessly glanced at Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo's hair stood up. Bihan gritted his teeth inside. Of course he knew the Darren meant. It referred to the fire that he had set on Xian Kong Temple's main peak. Thinking about how he had been kidnapped, sold himself to Darren, and how he had once said to Darren that he was going to set a fire to burn down Xian Kong Temple, Bihan felt the past him was so stupid. Other than Zhuo Mo and Gongsun Cha, no one else knew that Bihan had set a fire to burn down Xian Kong Temple's main peak. The other people praised the name, Arsonist. While Bihan was cold and reclusive, his fighting style was as a raging fire as he destroyed all those in his way. The name Arsonist matched that. The name isn't bad. Bihan was expressionless and his tone was icy. The two masters wiped away cold sweat. They had wondered for a long time about the two names. If Darren hadn't personally named them, they definitely would not have agreed. Cough. Zhuo Mo pretended to be composed and concluded, I hope everyone will cooperate with Gongsun Cha Darren and Bihan Darren to find a new battle method and master it. Gongsun Cha had a small smile. Bihan was expressionless. The battle generals felt their scalps prickle. Many people had expressions of wanting to cry. Why was it that Darren was the one that made trouble, but they were the ones to pay for it? Why? After saying this, Zhuo Mo raced off. Deep in the night, the stars filled the sky. Zhuo Mo was reclining on the rooftop with a bottle of wine beside him. He was leaning on his arm as he stared out in a daze at the stars. Ague was silently sitting next to him and didn't look any different from 7 years ago. Zhuo Mo knew how great the changes of the 7 years had been. The entire world was completely different. The two Shin devices today had stirred some of his memories. It was a very rare that anyone knew that the first true Shin device after the end of the ancient era was not Kunlun's capable person, but an unknown ghost that had been forged by his deceased father. This Shin device was also one of the fuses that led to the destruction of the Zhou family. The four sects that had come divided up, ghost. This became one of their important articles of study. They determinedly believed that they could find the crux of Shin power from it, because before father had forged ghost, no one in the Zhou family had cultivated Shin power. There was a lot of information in Zhou Mo's memory fragments that had been obtained from his father's secret rooms. For example, he knew that his mother had once been father's ghost, and this was one of the reasons that grandmother had not liked mother. The death of his parents was a riddle. Even his grandmother had never mentioned it. He only knew that ghost had always been kept at home even though he had never seen it. The old man who had been guarding it comprehended Shin power and been exiled to a desolate Ajia. In reality, other than the old man, there had been another person who had also comprehended Shin power from it, his grandmother. While grandmother had been alive, no one dared to come and make trouble. The only one able to exile a Shin power expert could only be another Shin power expert. The matters of his father and mother were very distant, so distant that he could only find some sparse words from those shattered memories. But he knew that father had forged ghost for mother. It was probably because father understood that one needed power to protect the people and things he held precious. In these years, Zhou Mo had not stopped cultivating. He knew that he would only be able to protect everything he treasured if he became more powerful. He looked warmly at Agui. There was the entire Mo cloud sea, and everyone that needed his protection. Maybe some people were filled with unrealistic illusions about the future, but Zhou Mo knew when the peace ended, it meant an even more desperate era. But he did not fear it. One literally means destroyer of cities, but it is usually used as a descriptor of female beauty, as a beauty that can destroy cities and countries. Chapter 747, The Last Straw. The stairs stretched deep down as though there was no end into the darkness. The walls on all sides were engraved with all kinds of seal scripts. Some had already started to crumble. It was clear that they were ancient. Flying down along the stone stairs, they had been moving for more than 4 hours but still could not see the end of the stairs. Sect leader. The elder at the front murmured anxiously. It was unusually clear in the deathly silence and caused everyone else to jump in fright. Some of the less courageous elders changed expressions minutely and showed slight terror. What? The sect leader did not stop. A hint of disdain floated at the corner of his lips. You're afraid? The elders were silent. No one made a sound. There's no way around it even if you are afraid. Do you know what the outside says about us? Us Shi Xian are the second Xian Kong temple. The Shi Xian trio, TSK, but none of them are in Shi Xian. The outside says that I am useless, that is right. However, you all know the situation of the sect better than anyone. Who forced Gu Yangdao into a corner? I said we needed to win over Shuangyu. The result? No one would bear to spit out some meat. The sect leader's cold and sharp words echoed in the passageway. The elders' faces turned black and white, no one made a sound. The battalions are in your hands. The battle generals are all your sons and nephews. That's nothing. I understand letting those close to you get the benefits. But please, pick ones with some talent. TSK, in 1 month 3 battalions were defeated. No wonder other people say we are the second Xian Kong temple. We did not receive any information beforehand. An elder argued. So people have to first notify you before attacking you? The sect leader smiled coldly. Look at what factions have defeated us, small factions without any fame. You are all masters at inner conflict. TSK, if you had half that skill when fighting against the outside, our sect should have conquered the 4 realms a long time ago. Embarrassment and anger mixed on the elders' faces. Inside the passageway, they flew for 3 days and 3 nights. Tiredness came onto the faces of the sect leader and the elders. At the end of the stone stairs was a copper door. "Stand guard outside," the sect leader said coldly. All the other elders released a breath and nodded. Their expressions when they looked at the copper doors were filled with terror and respect. The sect leader inhaled, pushed open the door and disappeared inside. "Uncle Zhong, for my father's sake, please help this nephew this once." The sect leader's tone was low, his body bowed as he said sorrowfully, "We were defeated 3 times in a month, Shi Xian's weakness has been exposed. The surrounding factions are looking to make a move. I have investigated our battalions, they are rotten to the core. In this enormous Shi Xian, there is no battalion that can fight." The large man in front of him had an indifferent expression. The large man sat on the chair. His body was brawny like a tower of metal. Just sitting there, he gave people a strong suffocating pressure. His short hair stood up straight like wires, but was almost completely white. Scars crisscrossed horrifically on his face. His gray pupils did not hold any emotion. Any exposed part of his body was covered in a dense mat of scars that were startling to see. There were 2 males standing on either side of the large man. Both of these men were also covered in scars. "I have already repaid your father's favor," the large man said coolly. "I need to guard the Fiend Abyss jail, find someone else." Bam! The sect leader suddenly knelt on the ground and started to cry. "Uncle Zhong, Shi Xian is in danger, please, save Shi Xian. If you do not act, Shi Xian will be destroyed. Uncle Zhong, if you are willing to come out, this nephew is willing to give up the position of sect leader." The large male was indifferent and unaffected. "See the guests out." The 2 men standing solemnly next to him suddenly released a sea of murderousness that hit the sect leader like a tsunami. The sect leader's body shook. He resisted the bone-piercing murderousness, and suddenly stopped crying. He gritted his teeth and said, "If Uncle Zhong is willing to come out of the mountain, this nephew is willing to construct the tomb of Yunji." Boom! The sect leader felt as though he was hit with a great hammer, flying out into the air dozens of zhang. The large man's gray eyes were bloodshot. For the first time, his face changed. The sect leader ignored the blood dripping from his mouth and struggled to climb up. "Yunji's contribution to our Shi Xian is great. When the tomb of Yunji is finished, I will announce as the sect leader for the core disciples and all the elders to come and mourn. Your father told you this story before he died." The large man became indifferent again. The sect leader's face paled. He was shocked. He hadn't thought that Uncle Zhong had been able to guess this. So he knew before that Yunji was innocent, the large man said to himself. His voice was desolate. "I asked to guard the Fiend Abyss jail. 50 years, I hadn't thought that father and son have continued to scheme against me." The sect leader's expression was ashen. "Where are her bones?" the large man suddenly asked. The sect leader felt that Uncle Zhong's gaze was like a pair of pincers that held him. He was almost unable to breathe and unconsciously said, "In a secret room. Father had made an altar to her." The pressure on him eased. He collapsed on the ground and panted, looking in terror at Uncle Zhong. A moment later, the large man suddenly said, "I will agree." The sect leader stilled and was overjoyed. "Many thanks, Uncle Zhong, many thanks, Uncle Zhong." The tomb of Yunji must be built within 2 years. The large man suddenly looked sardonically at the sect leader. The scar-covered face became unspeakably strange and terrifying. "No matter how much your father schemed, he could not have expected that I only have 3 years left to live." The sect leader was stunned. Zhuo was extremely busy. He increasingly felt that he needed a skilled manager. Right now, the main steward of Mo Cloud Sea was a Ming, a local of Cloud Sea Jia that Bao Yi had recommended. Bao Yi had been a small-time black market dealer from Little Mountain Jia. He had felt the great pressure once Mo Cloud Sea expanded, his hair almost turning white. He coincidentally found that Ming had good talent and promoted him. Later, Ming had become the main steward. Bao Yi went back to guarding the resource stores, and his days were easy now. Cloud Sea Jia was organized under Ming's management, yet the present Mo Cloud Sea was multiple times larger than back then. Ming was struggling. The present Mo Cloud Sea was 69 Jia in size, including the 3 Jia under the rule of Rare Artifact Hall. This included a great number of resource Jia. The complex flow of materials, battalion supplies, and searches for talent were complex. After Zhuo Mo had returned, Ming immediately sighed in relief. There were some decisions he did not dare make on his own. For example, the problem of production. Golden Crow Camp possessed a great ability to produce and was the greatest source of income for Mo Cloud Sea. What to produce was undoubtedly the greatest question, especially in this era of turbulence and rapid change. Other than Zhuo Mo, no one dared to make the decision. Problems like this were all left to Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo had a hard time. He desperately desired an outstanding manager. At this time, he realized that an outstanding manager's value was no less than a top battle general. He was jealous of Gu Yongdao. While Xiao had no offensive abilities, but he was talented at management. Gu Yongdao did not have to worry about any of this and could focus on training his troops and fighting. Ming was talented, but lacking greatly compared to Xiao. Management talent? Pu Yao also frowned. This kind of skill is not easy to find and recruit. Think of a way. By any means necessary. At any price. Zhuo Mo bared his teeth. I will pay attention. Pu Yao nodded. Zhuo Mo suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, how about your Pu Pus home for battle generals? How is that going? Pu Yao's expression was smug. There are some good seeds. Zhuo Mo was even more interested. Those that Pu Yao said were good probably had great talent. He immediately had a drooling expression. How about it? Can you pull them over? I can make a few battalions for them to play with. With Mo Cloud Sea's present wealth, Zhuo Mo had enough assets to say something like this. I have other arrangements. Pu Yao unhesitatingly refused Zhuo Mo's suggestion. You are not good like this. Zhuo Mo pressed. Pu Yao glanced at him. I heard that there are few good ones from the Battle General School. One should not bite off more than they can swallow. Good battle generals do not come from being taught, but through fighting. Zhuo Mo smiled weakly. He knew that Pu Yao was right. His greed had just came up. Fortunately, his face was thick, and this was just a usual matter. Lend Nan Yu and the others for me to use for a time, Pu Yao said. Zhuo Mo nodded. All right. If Pu Yao spoke so formally, then it meant it was a serious matter. If it was something devious, this guy wouldn't make a sound. Looking at Wei, who was in a meditative state, Zhuo Mo asked Pu Yao, when will Wei wake up? I don't know. Pu Yao shook his head. He needs time to adjust to the changes in your Shin power. You really are a freak, your Shin power has advanced too quickly. Pu Yao was shocked by Zhuo Mo's improvement rate. In 7 years, Zhuo Mo had always maintained an astounding rate of progress which had not shown any signs of slowing down. Zhuo Mo nodded. Have you seen those people from Kunlun? If I'm any slower, I will just be able to eat the ashes when it is over. Pu Yao was silent. While he had fought countless times against Kunlun in the 1,000-Year War, yet Kunlun, after such a long time of peace, was still working to advance. Even an enemy like Pu Yao had to admire the present Kunlun. In these 7 years, the ones that were fighting on the front lines were all elders. In these 7 years, the number of Kunlun elders that died surpassed the last 300 years added together. Of the Kunlun elders, there were less than 1/3 left. The sacrifices of their fathers, masters, and elders moved the genius youth of Kunlun. They didn't need supervision or additional motivation. They furiously and silently cultivated day and night, without rest and regard for their lives. The sacrifice of 2/3 of the elders over 7 years finally showed their astounding power. A large group of young yet powerful youths started to appear out of Kunlun. These youths that grew up in the time that the elders traded their blood for were filled with a sense of responsibility. They were unprecedented in their unity. They possessed astounding self-control. They were like their elders, not afraid of sacrifice. This kind of Kunlun made people feel terror, made the entire world feel terror. Even Zuo felt the pressure from Kunlun. Suddenly, a paper crane flew over. Zuo's expression turned serious. He opened the paper crane. Xixian's famous General Zhongde has come back out. He led the Abyss Jail Battalion and blood-washed the Central Plains. 13 Xixian elders were executed, their bodies left exposed to the elements for 10 days. He killed more than 7,000 people, the blood flowing in rivers. Chapter 748, The beginning of expansion. The reappearance of Zhongde was akin to an earthquake for all of the 4 realms. To the young people, this name was unfamiliar. But for those older, they all changed expression when they spoke of him. When people found the life history of this old general from the records, their hearts shook, they stopped breathing, and their lips tasted the thick tang of blood. The heart-shaking battle campaigns, even after 50 years of dust, still caused people's hearts to beat frantically. The first thing that Zhongde did after returning was to make a great cleansing of Xixian. He killed so many of the upper ranks that it had never happened before in the history of the 4 realms. Xixian was dyed in blood, and the central region of Xixian, the Central Plains, was soaked in blood. Countless Xixian battle generals heard of this, and hurriedly fled in the night. The outside world learned later that in the span of a short month, the commanders of 39 battalions had disappeared. And in the unprecedented cleansing process, the true number of people from Xixian that were executed was 30,000, and not 7,000 as previously believed. Under Zhongde's iron fist, not even one rebellion occurred. Soon, Zhongde, whose hands were covered in blood, once again showed the world his cruel and vicious style. He did not wait for the sect to finish reorganizing, did not care about the instability of the sect. He suddenly led the Abyss Prison Battalion to appear on the borders of Xixian. In a lightning-fast campaign, he destroyed 3 factions. This was a retaliation. The 3 factions destroyed were the 3 factions that had recently defeated Xixian's battalions. This seemingly normal retaliatory action shocked the world again, because the cities were massacred. Even though fighting had occurred for so many years, massacring everyone was rare, even in battles between the Xiuzha and Yaoma. The 17 cities of the 3 Jia became a desolate land. Such cruel actions caused condemnation from the rest of the 4 realms. Crowds of people were furious. They called him cruel, bloodthirsty, savage, and emotionless, butcher, and all sorts of other words to describe the old general. But no matter how they criticized, no battalion dared to advance on Xixian. The people were filled with deep terror and fear of this inhuman battle general. When enough blood had been split, there naturally would be peace. These became famed words spoken by Zhongde. All of Xixian trembled. The factions surrounding Xixian trembled. No one dared to say that Xixian was the second Xiankong temple. Even people who hated Xixian had to admit that Xixian's rise could not be stopped. Even if its rise was by struggling up from the mud and mired in blood. Sweeping away its decline, Xixian was at peace again. However, after 5 years at rest, the major sects that had focused on their own development had now finished their preparations to fight again. This time, Kunlun moved first. Kunlun had begun to move. Zuo's expression was grave. In front of him, everyone else was grave as well. They knew that one day, Kunlun would become an enemy they had to face. The indescribable pressure of Kunlun always was a stone weighing on their minds. Our present holdings are 69 jia, Gongsun Cha said calmly. After digesting Xian Kong Temple, Kunlun's dominion is about 1,300 jia, Tianhuan holds 1,100 jia, Shi Xian has not developed much and holds about 800 jia, the 9 great Dynana sects hold about 600 jia, Guliang Daos faction controls 142 jia. These are the public numbers, and the numbers of those jia controlled secretly are hard to calculate. Also, each faction have always been working to take the surround factions to strengthen themselves. If we face them now, we have no chance of victory. What is fortunate is that between us and Kun there are the 9 great Dhyana sects, Tianhuan, and Shi Xian. While Mo Cloud Sea is slightly remote, there are no strong enemies around, this is our advantage. The Jia map on the wall clearly showed Mo Cloud Sea's boundaries. Of the entire 4 realms, it was a tiny piece. While everyone was familiar with these numbers, they still inhaled sharply. The enormity of Kunlun and Tianhuan was suffocating. He Ming stood up and then said, "In the past few years, our strength has grown quickly. Abundant resources in addition to our great production abilities, as well as our mature trade channels. Our wealth accumulation has been good. The front-line battalions have all completely been refitted with the new Mo Cloud system, Shin equipment. It is one of the top battalion Shin raiments on the market and the inventory we have is satisfactory." When he spoke of this, the battle generals present nodded and were full of confidence. This was true. While Mo Cloud Sea was not large at present, but its equipment was among the best of the world. As Shin power developed, talismans had gradually left the world stage to be replaced by Shin equipment. Shin equipment was the lesser version of Shin devices. It was not as powerful as Shin device raiments, but it did not strain the user as much as Shin device raiments did. Most importantly, it was not as expensive to create as Shin device raiments. Mo Cloud Seas, Mo Cloud System, Shin equipment had always been one of the outstanding Shin equipment on the market. Together with Kunlun system and Tianhuan system, it was ranked as the top tier and collectively were called the 3 great Shin equipment. Even Shi Xian system, and the 9 great Dhyana sects, Dhyana system, were on a lower level. The level of the Shin equipment required understanding of Shin power, skill in forging, and rich resources. In the short term, no one would be able to shake the status of the 3 great systems. In reality, while Mo Cloud Sea's territory was not large, there were rarely people who would think of them as a small local power. They produced top-level Shin equipment, had 2 top battle generals, they did not have a large territory but had abundant resources. No one dared to look down at them. Inside Mo Cloud Sea were strong beings that were full of confidence and didn't know what fear was. Everyone turned to look at Zuo. No matter if it was Gong Sun Cha's analysis or He Ming's words, the one who would make the final decision would be Zuo. "We need to expand." When Zuo spoke, everyone became energized, especially the battle generals. They had fought in the past with Lil Miss, and felt rusty after being inactive for so many years. In truth, everyone knew that in the present situation, expansion was their own option. While Mo Cloud Sea looked as steady as a rock, that was because there was the 9 great Dhyana sects in the between them and their enemies. If they waited for Kunlun and Tianhuan to grow bigger, when the time arrived, they wouldn't even be able to protect themselves. While the Jinji defense line was strong, but if Kunlun and Tianhuan disregarded the loss of life, it would not be difficult to overcome. Mo Cloud Sea could rival them in elite battalions, but was lacking greatly in normal battalions. Just a battle of numbers was enough to destroy Mo Cloud Sea several times over. Only by expanding Mo Cloud Sea and strengthening itself, could they possess the power to fight back. Maybe other people were willing to submit to the other powers, but for the core members of Mo Cloud Sea, this was definitely impossible. The first to disagree would be Zuo. He had great grudges to settle with Kunlun, Tianhuan, and Shi Xian. He was fated to only have the path of fighting to the end. The reason they hadn't chosen to expand before was that their foundation was shallow. It was easy to conquer territories, but they didn't have the ability to digest it. Blind expansion would cause internal problems and weaken their defense against other factions. However, after the past several years of development, the present Mo Cloud Sea had the ability to expand now. The present question is, which direction do we expand in? Mo threw out the problem, and the atmosphere in the room suddenly became fiery. 9 great Diana sects. They look like they have a lot of people, but they definitely cannot fight. Other than Yang Yuan Hao, they don't have anyone else. Yes, the 9 great Diana sects, I heard that they were fighting among themselves. This is a good chance. The 9 great Diana sects were the 4th greatest power in the shoujo world, but their inner conflicts were fierce. Their system was similar to the Yao Council of Elders. Everyone thought that Mo would first start with the weakest, the Heroes Alliance, but Mo unexpectedly targeted the Mo Martial Alliance. Our goal is 100 energy jie. Mo's heated gaze was full of desire. Chapter 749, starting from the beginning. Mo had desired 100 energy jie since discovering the Shin crystals. In these past years, Mo had continued to send in spies to find the general location of the Shin crystal mine. However, the Shin crystal veins were hidden well and hard to quietly extract. Also, it was blocked off by a layer of fragmented star metal. This was also why the Shin crystals hadn't been found and harvested by others after many years. 100 energy jie was under the rule of the Mo Martial Alliance. If you wanted to extract these Shin crystals, there was only one way: take 100 energy jie. The Mo Martial Alliance had developed rapidly in the recent years. The Mo Martials, led by Marshal D, were wealthy to start with. Each person that could reach martial level was a strong individual. Ever since they watched the battle between Mo and the Yao elders, they had a new understanding of Shin power. Most of them chose to go into seclusion to cultivate and create a Shin power that belonged to their clan. The Mo were varied with subtypes and each clan possessed their unique bloodline. Unlike the Shin power of the Mo Shin Temple, the Mo Martial Alliance focused on upgrading their bloodline, using the Mo physique as a base to obtain Shin power. This Shin power cultivation method quickly became the mainstream for the Mo territories. Its greatest advantage was that it could express the power of the Mo physique and one did not need to restart their cultivation from the beginning. The Heroes Alliance also chose to use this cultivation method. Because of the differences in Mo physique, the Shin methodologies they each used were different. Each family knew that Shin methodologies were crucially important to their clan's future, and gathered all of their strength to overcome this obstacle. This kind of Shin power was called Mo Shin power. The Mo Shin Temple who was advanced in Shin power actually became the exception. This, however, did not affect the status of the Mo Shin Temple. The 3 great Mo gods were unstoppable in the recent years, their territory expanding rapidly to become the strongest faction in 100 Savage Realm. The strong Mo Martial Alliance did not cause them to feel fear. Once Mo determined the target, the battle generals, led by Gongsun Cha and Bihan, started to move. A plan around the goal of taking over 100 energy jie secretly took form. Pu Pu's home for battle generals had some fame among the Yao battle generals. The students performed outstandingly in war chess, even defeating several of the military battle generals in succession which had caused its fame to rise. However, not many people cared. Even the active battle generals that had been defeated did not think too much of the defeat. No matter how realistic war chess was, there were still great differences between war chess and true battle. It was not strange for a battle general strong in war chess to be terrible in real combat. There were also many loose organizations like this among the Yao. The members that Pu Pu's home for battle generals took in were those battle generals who were not very strong. These people had average marks in the Yao art houses, some of them just barely managing to pass. Students like this usually had a hard time entering a battalion. If one did not have a strong background, they would need great talent to enter a battalion. Pu Pu's home for battle generals were relaxed in their management of their members. It was easy to enter, and effortless to leave. Naturally, no one would pay attention to an organization like this. The most famous member of Pu Pu's home for battle generals was Liang Wei. But no battalion had thrown an olive branch out to this disgraced battle general. The one who had relieved him of command was Corps Command in Sure. Someone who had real power in the military, and his experience among all of the Yao was at the top. His background was strong, and no one was willing to risk offending Corps Commander in Sure to recruit Liang Wei into their command. Liang Wei also liked to fight and had a wild personality. He looked like a troublemaker, and there were rarely people who wanted a troublemaker under their command. Liang Wei had been idle at home for 7 years, and no battalion had made any offer for him. The laughter and taunts against Liang Wei grew and more unrestrained. The reputation that Pu Pu's home for battle generals had among the battle general circle of being the failure camp grew and solidified. The battle generals that thought themselves strong disdained this place. Ever since some active battle generals were defeated, no one liked to come here. There was nothing worthy of praise if they won, but if they lost, their comrades would laugh at them for a long time. Affected, many irresolute students left. The students left were all those that were not affected by the rumors outside. Compared to the mockery outside, the students inside Pu Pu's home for battle generals were unusually quiet. These students, for the most part, had studied for more than 3 years at Pu Pu's home for battle generals. The great majority of them had their own jobs, and would only have the time to come at night. If they could not enter a battalion, then it was not easy for battle general students to find work. What interested them the most was the simulation match each week. Even now, they did not know the identity of Pu Pu's home for battle generals founder. However, they could clearly feel that the other was strong. This kind of feeling was especially strong during the simulation match. When this time came, Pu Pu would personally come. The simulation chess was even more realistic than war chess. Every student who attended the simulation chess match for the first time was astonished, but they would be quickly sucked in. The strange and variable tactical style and the unfathomable power of the person called Pu Pu made them feel hopeless each time. Every week, the hottest topic of discussion was how long someone could survive against Pu Pu's hand. The record holder had always been Liang Wei. Today was the same as usual. Liang Wei still struggled to endure under the other's barrage of attacks. Even though he was already used to the strength of the opponent, but every match, that unstoppable pressure made him feel suffocated. The only thing comforting was that he had started to be able to tolerate this feeling of suffocation. Complete defeat. He panted furiously and was soaked in sweat. He looked at the time and was slightly happy. Compared to last time, he had survived a half-hour longer than before. He was preparing to leave the simulation chess like usual when Pu Pu, standing on the opposite side, suddenly spoke. The simulation chess is unable to help you improve anymore. Liang Wei stilled. He stopped walking. The thread of joy from his achievement immediately disappeared without a trace. He suddenly felt empty. In these years, coming to Pu Pu's home for battle generals every day had almost become a habit. His mind had only stopped being restless because he could feel he was continuously improving. If Pu Pu's home for battle generals could not make him improve any further and he did not have to come here, then where should he go? Other than fighting, he didn't know anything else. If he hadn't had accumulated savings in the early years, it would be a problem for him to even live. When Pu Pu said this place could not improve here, in that moment, he felt clueless and bewildered. But he was a battle general that had been tempered in blood and fire. His resolve was far stronger than normal people. He focused and asked, then what can make me improve? True battle. Liang Wei dimmed. Gradually, his lips turned in a grimace. He knew that Pu Pu was right. While he had never seen Pu Pu's true appearance, he was still filled with respect towards Pu Pu. He was unlike the other students, he had seen the world and had fought against many strong people. Pu Pu was the strongest battle general he had ever seen. He could not understand what such a great battle general was doing here within a small battle general school. He concluded that Pu Pu might be in a situation similar to himself. Either he was disliked by his superior officer or he was being isolated by his peers, or there were other reasons that he started this battle general school to waste away time. Where is their true battle? Liang Wei smiled in self-mockery. If you are willing, I can think of a way. However, the conditions will be harsh, you need to be mentally prepared, Pu Pu said. Liang Wei was really stunned this time. A moment later, he asked suspiciously. You really have a way? You are very talented, but if you keep on being wasted, you will never have any hope of entering the ranks of the true top battle generals. Pu Pu's voice seemed to come from afar away but hit Liang Wei's fragile heart. Liang Wei suddenly raised his head. Who are you really? Do you really care who I am? You only care if you can enter the battlefield again. You only care if you can get revenge. As long as I am not Kunlun, will you care about anything else? Pu Yao asked in response. Liang Wei's body shook slightly. You investigated me? You? With your past, is it even an investigation? Pu Yao continued to ask in response. Liang Wei was silent. While not everyone knew of his history, but there were innumerable people among the battle general circles that knew. What do you want me to do? Liang Wei asked in a deep voice. Do what you are most skilled at, Pu Pu answered. Which battalion? Liang Wei felt as though something was burning inside his body. The flames burned at his heart, and the temperature of his blood continued to rise. A group of rabble, they only have completed basic training. Pu Pu didn't change at all. Liang Wei was slightly disappointed. HRMPH, did you really think that a trained battalion would be given to you? It seems that you do not have a deep enough understanding of your situation. If you want to return to the battlefield, you have to start over from the beginning. Pu Pu was not polite. Liang Wei nodded. You are right. Also, only a battalion that you built with your own hands will be a battalion that truly belongs to you. All of your ideas can be realized through them. You will be the leader of the battalion. Liang Wei felt there was an indescribable temptation in Pu Pu's words. In a few short sentences, his heart was moved, and he felt that burning once again. This guy was a true demon. All right. Liang Wei nodded and then asked, You are sure we will fight against Kunlun? Do not worry about this, we are mortal enemies with Kunlun. Pu's voice was also filled with pleasure. Starting from the beginning, I need some helpers. Liang Wei had already started to consider the practicalities. You can pick anyone from Pu Pu's home for battle generals. You should know their strength. Give a list to me, and I will persuade them, Pu Pu said. Liang Wei's confidence increased. There were some outstanding students. More importantly, everyone was familiar with each other, they had built trust with each other, and this would spare a lot of trouble in the future. A battalion built with these people as the framework, it really made one anticipate. Alright, I need to go back and think. I will give the list to you tomorrow. Liang Wei felt as though he couldn't wait. No problem. Pu Pu's response was brisk. When the other students found Liang Wei as he came out of the simulation chess, they were all shocked. The Liang Wei in front of them seemed to be a completely different person, giving off endless fighting spirit and sharp edges. Chapter 750, Black Fire, Boss, they've arrived, the subordinate respectfully reported. He licked his lips. His gaze when he looked towards the shadow was full of respect and awe. Has everything been arranged? A deep voice came from within the shadow. All arranged, the subordinate hurriedly responded. See them to the evening banquet hall. The subordinate was slightly shocked. Boss almost never met other people, and the number of people that saw Boss' true appearance could be counted on the fingers. He now found that he underestimated the importance Boss placed on these guests. He hurriedly lowered his head and said, I will go arrange it immediately. Go. An indifferent voice came out of the shadow. The subordinate turned and left. A red-haired youth stepped out of the shadows. His long and narrow eyes were deep and dark. The blue crystal at his brow occasionally flashed with light. He seemed to be one with the shadow and darkness. He had a thoughtful expression on his face. The present Yu Qinlai was far too changed from that rebellious youth of the past. He was now a famed person in the underworld. He had countless able people under his command and he had amassed great power. Even the local factions had to give him some face. The name of Black Fire had some reputation in the underworld. As his influence increased, Yu Qinlai began to hide himself in the shadows and rarely made appearances. So when Yu Qinlai decided to hold a banquet for the guests, his subordinates were all astonished. However, these people were the most skilled at concealment and control. While they were extremely curious, they maintained their professionalism and did not show it on their face. In their eyes, Boss was unfathomable. This unfathomable was not referring to his individual fighting ability. Among Black Fire, Yu Qinlai rarely fought. No one knew how strong he truly was. However, every person was filled with respect and awe towards Boss. In the underworld, things like betrayal, assassination, and conspiracy would never end. However, no matter how carefully planned or well hidden the other's plan was, Boss had never failed to counteract it. Even facing a terrifying existence like the Council of Elders, he was still able to organize a withdrawal with all of them remaining unharmed, and without leaving any trace. Everyone in Black Fire was filled with respect and awe towards Boss. His unfathomable and skilled way of acting, his vicious and ruthless style, his fairness to his subordinates and the strictness of the organization. None of their missions had ever failed. Boss had a maturity and viciousness in his command that was beyond his years. In the eyes of the subordinates, Boss was born a king of the underworld. In a hidden estate that was heavily guarded. All the important people in Black Fire arrived. Chai Shanqing was scholarly in appearance with a faint smile hanging on his face. He wore green robes as though he was a teacher in a Yao art house. In actual truth, he taught music in a famed Yao art house and was well respected by his students. Who would have those? This elegant middle-aged person was the famed and vicious Black Fire's third in command. It seems that Boss is going to show himself. Chai Shanqing laughed lightly. The male beside him was completely wrapped up in a black robe. Only a pair of gray eyes showed. If one didn't see him with their own eyes, normal people would definitely not detect a person was there. The fourth in command of Black Fire, Wu Ying. He was skilled in sneaking and assassination. As a testament to his skill, innumerable powerful people had died by his hand. Wu Ying was silent as though he hadn't heard these words. Chai Shanqing was used to the other being so and said to himself with a laugh, "I'm very curious about Boss' origins." Before he finished saying this, the feeling of cold metal rose against his throat. A sharp murderousness intent reached his neck like an extended dagger. He said with slight helplessness, Hey, I'm just talking, aren't you also curious?" The murderousness disappeared as though nothing had occurred. Chai Shanqing had an expression of helplessness. He knew that Wu Ying was faithfully loyal to Boss. Wu Ying would unhesitatingly kill anyone that would threaten Boss. He couldn't help but mutter, "You are so ruthless to treat me so." Wu Ying seemed to not hear it. A wondrous voice came from behind them. "Stop fooling around, the guests are about to arrive." Chai Shanqing heard this voice and shuddered. Even Wu Ying's body imperceptibly tensed. An astoundingly beautiful woman walked over with a smile. The tight black evening dress emphasized her hot body, her arms bare, and the snowy dip causing people's blood to burn. She had curly blonde hair and a seductive presence. Chai Shanqing and Wu Xing feared her like she was a snake. She was the second in command of Black Fire, Tao Wei. Tao Wei threw a flirtatious look at the two before striding next to Yu Qinlai and docilely standing to one side. Yu Qinlai's narrow eyes were deep and his emotions hidden. He seemed to be the same as usual, but everyone present had a strong feeling that today was definitely an important day. Soon, a group of people were led over under the guidance of a subordinate. Yet what shocked Tao Wei, Chai Ching-shan and the others was that boss walked down from the stairs and moved to greet them. Even though they had been prepared mentally, they were still stunned when they saw this. I am Yuqin Lai, a cool voice that one could not hear any emotion from. I am Liang Wei. Liang Wei looked at the other warily. The other was not old, about the same age as him. The feeling of darkness on the other caused him to frown slightly. As a battle general, Liang Wei lacked any good feelings about people that moved in the shadows. A banquet has been prepared, please come with me, Yuqin Lai said coolly. Finishing, he turned and walked away. Liang Wei hesitated slightly and then followed closely, saying, you are too polite. The idleness of these past years had caused his interpersonal skills to improve. Walking into the yard, what he saw was simple and not luxurious as he had imagined. This caused Liang Wei to hold a slightly better opinion of the other. In his impressions, those factions of the darkness were usually ostentatious and lived luxurious lives. If the power he was serving was faction of the dark, Liang Wei would be slightly disappointed. He had always speculated which faction Pu Pu belonged to but had always thought of the major factions. In his view, a small faction could not possess or support such a strong battle general. Everyone sat in their seats. The other people did not think as much as Liang Wei. Pu Pu had recruited and persuaded them with simple conditions, a generous salary and money to establish a home. For these people, they were satisfied with being able to do what they liked and receiving rich rewards. Also, they had stayed for a long time at Pu Pu's home for battle generals and trusted its owner. Liang Wei was observing Yuqin Lai, while Yuqin Lai and his group were also observing the guests. Especially, Chai Shanqing. He was elegant, and his words made people feel comfortable. While Liang Wei was wary, the other people with him quickly spilled the beans. Battle generals. These people were all battle generals. Chai Shanqing and the others were greatly shocked. In the world of darkness, there was no place for battle generals to exist. The world of darkness was a word filled with deceit, conspiracy, and assassination. The battles of the underworld was silent, and the people that lived in the same city as them would not detect anything. The factions of the dark that possessed battalions died out the fastest. The darkness was their best protection. Enormous battalions would cause them to lose the protection of the darkness and move the organization towards death. Only those truly public factions could possess battalions, would need battalions. Boss did have a background. At this time, the perceptive Chai Shanqing immediately recalled where he had heard the name Liang Wei before. The dismissal in his eyes disappeared. This young battle general that had been famed for a time had been recruited by the faction behind Boss. The higher-ups have a few things they wanted me to tell you, Yuqin Lai said coolly. Liang Wei unconsciously sat up and said solemnly, please speak. The other people stopped conversing and perked up their ears. Liang Wei's commanders showed intent expressions. This was related to their future. The base has been prepared. You will go and take the position of the highest commander of the battalion. All of the resources have been transported to the base. You need to finish selection and organization before the 12th month of this year. In other words, you have 6 months to build the battalion. At the 6th month of next year, you need to finish basic training, and find the battle style suited to you. The higher-ups will forge Shin equipment according to your selected battle style. Liang Wei's heart shook slightly. The faction was able to forge Shin equipment. As expected, a big faction. Those that could forge Shin equipment right now were definitely big factions. The other people present inhaled sharply, especially Yuqin Lai's subordinates. They had guessed long ago that Boss had a background, but they hadn't thought that it would be so great. The delivery of equipment is temporarily set at 3 months. They hope that you can become battle ready as soon as possible. When you are all outfitted, you may be sent out on campaigns. Liang Wei frowned. The time is too tight, a battalion is not so easy to build. The deaths will be great when a new battalion goes to fight. Yu Qinlai said coolly, then this is something you have to consider and prepare for. Liang Wei calculated inside. He did not argue. He had been prepared mentally. If the faction did have power and still used him, then the missions he received would not be a normal or easy one. He had prepared fully to the difficulties he was going to encounter. However, when he thought that this was the only way he could lead a battalion onto the battlefield again, he felt as though he was filled with endless energy. How long is the trip to the base? He asked. 13 days. Time is tight, let's move now. Liang Wei pushed away from the table and stood. They had all heard what Yu Qinlai had just said. Let's eat before leaving, Yu Qinlai said. We can eat rations on the road, Liang Wei insisted. All right. Yu Qinlai did not try to keep them. Quickly, under the ushering of the subordinates, Liang Wei's group hurriedly left. Tao Wei and the others stared at each other. They hadn't expected Liang Wei and the others to leave so quickly. Yu Qinlai sat down again. The other people saw this and knew that boss definitely had other things to say to them. They hurriedly sat down as well. Everyone, prepare, we are going to go to war against, snapped Red Silk. Yu Qinlai's words were like a huge bomb. Tao Wei and the others changed expression. Snapped Red Silk was not a small faction. Black Fire controlled only 13 Yao Jies, and adding on the ones they had infiltrated, they only had 26. Yet, Snapped Red Silk directly controlled over 18 Yao Jies. Snapped Red Silk was stronger than they were. Boss. Tao Wei couldn't help but say. She knew that this definitely was a mission that boss higher-ups had ordered them to carry out, but in her view, this kind of mission could not be completed. Do not worry, we are not fighting alone, Yu Qinlai said coolly. Everyone else couldn't help but shake. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.